The Bronze Age Mediterranean was a world of magnificent civilizations, each leaving their mark upon the tapestry of ancient history. While many are familiar with the grandeur of Egypt's pharaohs, the might of Mesopotamian kings, and the mysterious splendor of Minoan Crete, there existed another remarkable civilization that would fundamentally shape the course of Western culture. These were the Mycenaeans, the first true Greeks, whose warrior culture and palatial centers dominated the Aegean world for centuries, before vanishing into legend and archaeological mystery. Until the late 19th century, the Mycenaeans existed primarily in the realm of myth and poetry. Their exploits were immortalized in Homer's epic tales of the Trojan War, where heroes like Agamemnon and Achilles battled beneath the walls of Troy. For generations, scholars debated whether these stories contained any historical truth or were merely the products of poetic imagination. The breakthrough came with Heinrich Schliemann's archaeological expeditions, which revealed that the legendary cities of Troy and Mycenae were not figments of ancient storytelling, but actual Bronze Age settlements of extraordinary wealth and sophistication. The rediscovery of Mycenaean civilization has been one of archaeology's most dramatic success stories. From Schliemann's initial excavations at Mycenae in the 1870s to the recent discovery of the spectacular Griffin warrior tomb near Pylos, each new find has added layers to our understanding of this enigmatic culture. The decipherment of Linear B script in the 1950s revolutionized Mycenaean studies, proving definitively that these Bronze Age peoples spoke an early form of Greek and establishing them as the direct ancestors of classical Greek civilization. The picture that emerges from decades of archaeological investigation reveals a complex and sophisticated society that flourished across mainland Greece, the Aegean islands, and beyond, from approximately 1600 to 1100 BCE. The Mycenaeans established powerful palace-centered kingdoms, developed extensive trade networks spanning the Mediterranean, and created architectural marvels that still inspire awe today. Their influence extended far beyond their homeland, reaching as distant as the Caucasus, Bavaria, and the British Isles through their remarkable trading connections. To truly comprehend this fascinating civilization, we must examine their origins, society, achievements, and ultimate fate. The question of who the Mycenaeans were encompasses not merely their ethnic identity, but their cultural innovations, political structures, religious beliefs, and the profound impact they had on subsequent Greek development. Their story is one of remarkable rise, magnificent achievement, and mysterious collapse that ushered in centuries of decline before the eventual rebirth of Greek civilization. The origins of Mycenaean civilization have long been a subject of intense scholarly debate and investigation. Unlike some ancient peoples who left detailed records of their early history, the Mycenaeans emerged onto the historical stage with relatively little documentation of their beginnings. The earliest evidence of their presence comes from the Middle Bronze Age, around 1750 BCE, when significant changes began occurring in the archaeological record of mainland Greece. The transformation from the preceding Early and Middle Bronze Age cultures to distinctly Mycenaean civilization was neither sudden nor uniform across the Greek mainland. Archaeological evidence suggests a gradual development that involved both indigenous populations and external influences. The local communities of central and southern Greece began experiencing dramatic social and economic changes during the 17th century BCE, with the emergence of more complex settlement patterns and increasingly sophisticated material culture. One of the most significant early developments was the appearance of shaft graves containing extraordinarily wealthy burial goods. These graves, particularly those found in grave circles A and B at Mycenae itself, represent some of the richest burials ever discovered from Bronze Age Europe. The grave goods included elaborate gold masks, ornate weapons, jewelry, and vessels that demonstrate both local craftsmanship and foreign connections. The famous gold mask that Schliemann dramatically claimed belonged to Agamemnon, though actually dating to several centuries before the traditional date of the Trojan War, exemplifies the extraordinary wealth and artistic sophistication of early Mycenaean elites. The question of ethnic identity has proven particularly complex and contentious among scholars. Traditional theories proposed that the Mycenaeans represented an invasion or migration of Indo-European speaking peoples from the north who conquered and displaced earlier inhabitants. This invasion theory was supported by evidence of destruction layers at various sites and the apparent introduction of new cultural elements, including different pottery styles, burial practices, and architectural techniques. However, more recent archaeological and genetic research has challenged these invasion scenarios. Modern genetic studies of ancient DNA from Mycenaean burials reveal a population that was largely descended from earlier inhabitants of Greece, with some additional ancestry from Eastern European or steppe populations. This evidence suggests a more complex process of cultural development that involved both indigenous evolution and external influences, rather than wholesale population replacement. The linguistic evidence adds another layer to this puzzle. The decipherment of Linear B tablets demonstrated conclusively that the Mycenaeans spoke an early form of Greek, an Indo-European language. However, the presence of numerous non-Greek words in these tablets, particularly terms related to local geography, crafts, and administration, indicates significant cultural continuity with pre-Mycenaean populations. Many of these borrowed words appear to derive from the languages of earlier inhabitants, suggesting cultural synthesis rather than simple conquest. Regional variation also characterized early Mycenaean development. Different areas of mainland Greece showed distinct trajectories toward palatial organization and centralized authority. The Argolid region, including Mycenae itself, appears to have developed powerful centralized kingdoms relatively early, while other regions maintained more decentralized forms of organization for longer periods. This regional diversity reflects the complex mosaic of local traditions and external influences that shaped Mycenaean civilization. The role of Minoan Crete in Mycenaean development cannot be overstated. The sophisticated palace civilization that flourished on Crete during the Middle and early Late Bronze Ages provided crucial models and influences for emerging Mycenaean culture. Minoan artistic styles, administrative practices, religious symbols, and luxury goods all appear in early Mycenaean contexts, suggesting intensive cultural contact and exchange between the island and the mainland. The nature of this Minoan influence has been interpreted in various ways by different scholars. Some have proposed direct Minoan colonization or political control over parts of mainland Greece, while others suggest more informal cultural transmission through trade, intermarriage, and diplomatic contacts. The presence of Minoan-style frescoes in early Mycenaean palaces, the adoption of Minoan religious symbols and artistic motifs, and the clear influence of Minoan craftsmanship on Mycenaean luxury goods all point to sustained and intensive cultural interaction. Archaeological evidence from major early Mycenaean sites reveals the gradual emergence of the characteristic features that would define this civilization. The development of Megaran-style architecture, with its distinctive hall and porch design, represents a distinctly mainland Greek architectural tradition that would influence later Greek building practices. The construction of massive fortification walls using the Cyclopean masonry technique demonstrates sophisticated engineering capabilities and the resources available to early Mycenaean rulers. The emergence of Linear B script represents another crucial development in early Mycenaean culture. This syllabic writing system, adapted from the earlier Linear A script used by the Minoans, was specifically modified to record the Greek language. The earliest Linear B tablets date to around 1450 BCE and provide our first written records in Greek. These administrative documents reveal a highly organized society with complex bureaucratic systems for managing palace economies, recording tribute payments, and organizing military forces. The geographic spread of early Mycenaean culture was remarkably extensive. While the major palatial centers were concentrated in the Peloponnese and central Greece, Mycenaean influence and settlements extended throughout the Aegean world and beyond. Archaeological evidence of Mycenaean presence has been found on numerous Aegean islands, along the coast of Asia Minor, and even at distant locations throughout the Mediterranean. This expansion was facilitated by the Mycenaeans' remarkable maritime capabilities. They developed sophisticated shipbuilding techniques that enabled long-distance voyages and established trading networks that connected the Aegean world with distant regions. Mycenaean pottery and other artifacts have been discovered at sites ranging from Sicily in the west to Cyprus and the Levantine coast in the east, demonstrating the extent of their commercial and cultural influence. The process by which local chieftains and warrior elites transformed into palace-dwelling kings remains one of the most intriguing aspects of early Mycenaean development. The shaft graves suggest that powerful individuals were accumulating unprecedented wealth and status during the 16th and 15th centuries BCE. This wealth appears to have derived from a combination of local resources, long-distance trade, and possibly military conquest or raiding. The transformation from chieftain-level society to palace-centered kingdoms required significant changes in social organization, economic systems, and political structures. The development of specialized craftsmanship, complex administrative systems, and monumental architecture all indicate the emergence of more sophisticated forms of social stratification and centralized authority. This process appears to have accelerated during the 15th century BCE, leading to the establishment of the great palatial centers that would characterize mature Mycenaean civilization. At Obscure Histories, we find these questions of cultural development and transformation particularly fascinating because they illuminate the complex processes by which civilizations emerge and evolve. The Mycenaean example demonstrates that the rise of complex societies rarely follows simple patterns of conquest or migration, but instead involves intricate interactions between indigenous developments and external influences. The early Mycenaean period also established many of the fundamental characteristics that would define this civilization throughout its existence. The emphasis on warrior culture, the importance of palatial administration, the integration of religious and political authority, and the extensive trading networks all emerged during these formative centuries. Understanding these early developments provides crucial context for comprehending the remarkable achievements and ultimate fate of Mycenaean civilization. The evidence from early Mycenaean sites continues to grow as new archaeological discoveries shed light on this formative period. Recent excavations have revealed previously unknown aspects of early Mycenaean culture, including evidence of sophisticated craft production, complex settlement hierarchies, and extensive regional interactions. Each new discovery adds to our understanding of how this remarkable civilization emerged from its Bronze Age predecessors to become one of the most influential cultures in ancient Mediterranean history. The transition from these early formative centuries to the fully developed palace civilization of the late Bronze Age marked one of the most remarkable transformations in ancient Mediterranean history. By approximately 1450 BCE, the scattered chieftains and warrior elites of earlier centuries had consolidated their power into sophisticated palace-centered kingdoms that would dominate the Aegean world for the next 3 centuries. This transformation was not merely political, but encompassed every aspect of Mycenaean society, from economic organization and religious practices to artistic expression and military technology. The mature Mycenaean palace system represented a revolutionary approach to political and economic organization in the Bronze Age Mediterranean. Unlike the decentralized tribal structures that had previously characterized mainland Greece, these new kingdoms were highly centralized, bureaucratic states controlled from massive fortified palace complexes. The palace served simultaneously as royal residence, administrative center, religious sanctuary, military headquarters, and economic hub for the entire kingdom. Archaeological excavations at major Mycenaean palace sites have revealed the extraordinary complexity of these administrative centers. The Palace of Nestor at Pylos, though destroyed by fire around 1200 BCE, preserved thousands of Linear B tablets that provide unparalleled insights into palace administration. These documents reveal a sophisticated bureaucratic system that managed every aspect of the kingdom's economy, from livestock inventories and land tenure records to craft production quotas and military mobilization lists. The economic foundation of these palace kingdoms was fundamentally different from earlier Bronze Age societies in the region. Rather than relying primarily on subsistence agriculture and local exchange networks, the Mycenaean palaces developed what scholars term a redistributive economy. This system concentrated agricultural surplus, craft production, and trade goods within the palace, which then redistributed these resources according to complex hierarchical relationships and administrative priorities. The scale of palace economic activities was truly impressive. Storage facilities within these complexes could accommodate enormous quantities of grain, olive oil, wine, and other commodities. The Palace of Pylos alone contained storage areas capable of holding supplies sufficient for thousands of people. Similar massive storage complexes have been identified at Mycenae, Tiryns, Thebes, and other major palatial centers, indicating that this redistributive system was a standard feature of Mycenaean political organization. Craft production under the palace system reached levels of sophistication and specialization previously unknown in mainland Greece. Palace workshops produced luxury goods of extraordinary quality, including elaborate bronze weapons, exquisite jewelry, fine pottery, and textiles. These workshops were staffed by specialist craftsmen who appear to have held privileged positions within palace society. The Linear B tablets record various categories of skilled workers, including metal workers, carpenters, masons, potters, perfume makers, and textile workers. The organization of craft production reveals the highly stratified nature of Mycenaean society. Master craftsmen supervised workshops that employed numerous subordinate workers, many of whom appear to have been slaves or persons of dependent status. The products of these workshops served multiple purposes, equipping the palace elite with symbols of their status and power, providing goods for long-distance trade, and fulfilling religious obligations through the production of offerings and ritual objects. Agricultural organization under the palace system was equally complex and sophisticated. The Linear B tablets reveal detailed records of land tenure, with palace officials carefully documenting who held various plots of land and what obligations these holdings entailed. The system distinguished between different categories of landholding, including royal land directly controlled by the palace, land granted to officials and nobles in return for service, and land held by local communities under various forms of tenure. The palace also maintained detailed records of livestock, including cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs. These animals provided not only meat and dairy products, but also materials for craft production, including leather, wool, and bone. The scale of palace-controlled herds was enormous, with some tablets recording flocks numbering in the thousands. This livestock was distributed across the kingdom's territory under the supervision of local officials who reported regularly to the central palace administration. Military organization formed another crucial pillar of palace authority. The Mycenaean kingdoms were fundamentally warrior states, and their rulers derived much of their power and prestige from military success. The palace served as the headquarters for elaborate military hierarchies that could mobilize substantial forces for campaigns of conquest, defense, or raiding. The Linear B tablets provide fascinating glimpses into this military organization, recording everything from chariot inventories and weapon stockpiles to mobilization orders and personnel assignments. The famous Mycenaean chariot forces represented the elite striking arm of these palace armies. Archaeological and textual evidence reveals that the palaces maintained substantial numbers of war chariots, along with the horses, equipment, and personnel necessary to operate them effectively. These vehicles were not merely transportation, but served as mobile fighting platforms for elite warriors who formed the core of Mycenaean military forces. infantry forces, though less glamorous than the chariot corps, formed the bulk of palace armies. These troops were equipped with bronze weapons produced in palace workshops and organized under officers who held various ranks within the military hierarchy. The tablets record different categories of military personnel, from high-ranking commanders to ordinary soldiers, each with specific roles and responsibilities within the overall military structure. The religious dimension of palace authority was equally important in legitimizing and maintaining royal power. Mycenaean kings served not only as political and military leaders, but also as high priests responsible for maintaining proper relationships between their kingdoms and the divine world. The palaces contained elaborate religious facilities, including shrines, altars, and storage areas for ritual equipment and offerings. The Linear B tablets reveal a complex religious system that combined elements inherited from earlier Greek traditions with influences absorbed from Minoan Crete and other Mediterranean cultures. The pantheon included deities who would later be familiar in classical Greek religion, though often with different attributes and roles. Religious festivals and ceremonies required substantial resources and elaborate organization, reflecting their central importance in palace society. Palace religious activities extended far beyond the immediate royal residence to encompass the entire kingdom. Local shrines and religious sites throughout the territory were incorporated into palace-controlled religious networks. The central palace coordinated regional religious festivals, collected offerings from local communities, and dispatched religious officials to oversee important ceremonies at distant locations. The international dimensions of palace power were perhaps most visible in the extensive trading networks that connected Mycenaean kingdoms with distant regions throughout the Mediterranean and beyond. These trade relationships were not merely commercial, but involved complex diplomatic, political, and cultural exchanges that enhanced palace prestige and authority. Mycenaean merchants and diplomatic agents traveled throughout the known world, establishing trading posts, negotiating agreements, and acquiring exotic goods that demonstrated palace wealth and connections. Archaeological evidence of Mycenaean presence has been found at sites from Spain to the Black Sea, testament to the remarkable reach of these Bronze Age trading networks. The palaces served as crucial nodes in these international networks, concentrating imported goods and controlling their distribution throughout the kingdom. Luxury items from distant regions, including amber from the Baltic, ivory from Africa, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, and tin from various sources, were accumulated in palace storerooms before being redistributed to palace dependents or used in religious ceremonies. At Obscure Histories, we find the palace system particularly fascinating because it represents one of the earliest examples of complex state organization in European history. The administrative sophistication revealed by the Linear B archives demonstrates capabilities that would not be seen again in Greece until the classical period, more than 5 centuries later. The palace kingdoms also established many organizational principles that would influence later Greek political development. The integration of military, religious, and economic authority under royal leadership, the use of written records for administrative purposes, and the coordination of regional activities through centralized bureaucracies all prefigured aspects of later Greek political organization. The construction and maintenance of these palace complexes required enormous resources and sophisticated engineering capabilities. The massive fortification walls that surrounded major sites like Mycenae and Tiryns represent some of the most impressive architectural achievements of Bronze Age Europe. These structures were built using enormous limestone blocks fitted together with remarkable precision, creating defensive systems that could withstand prolonged sieges. The palace buildings themselves were equally impressive, featuring elaborate architectural elements including grand entrance halls, throne rooms, residential quarters, storage facilities, and religious areas. The famous Megaron halls, with their distinctive columned porches and central hearths, provided impressive settings for royal ceremonies and diplomatic receptions. These architectural forms would later influence the development of classical Greek temple design. The artistic achievements of the palace period reflected the wealth and sophistication of Mycenaean civilization at its height. Palace workshops produced magnificent works in various media, including elaborate frescoes that decorated royal apartments, intricate metalwork that demonstrated technical mastery, and fine pottery that combined functionality with artistic excellence. These artistic traditions drew inspiration from various sources while developing distinctly Mycenaean characteristics. The palace system thus represents the culmination of centuries of Mycenaean cultural development, combining indigenous Greek traditions with influences absorbed from throughout the Mediterranean world. This synthesis created a unique civilization that would profoundly influence the subsequent development of Greek culture while establishing Greece as a major power in the Bronze Age Mediterranean world. The daily life of ordinary Mycenaeans beneath these magnificent palace complexes reveals a society of remarkable complexity and stratification. While the Linear B tablets focus primarily on palace administration and elite activities, archaeological evidence from settlements, burials, and material remains provides glimpses into how common people lived, worked, and organized their communities within this Bronze Age civilization. The majority of the Mycenaean population consisted of farmers, herders, and craftsmen who lived in small villages and towns scattered throughout the territories controlled by the great palaces. These communities were organized hierarchically, with local officials serving as intermediaries between the central palace administration and the rural population. Village headmen, recorded in the Linear B tablets under various titles, were responsible for collecting tribute, organizing labor services, and maintaining order within their communities. Agricultural life formed the foundation of Mycenaean society, with most families engaged in mixed farming that combined crop cultivation with animal husbandry. The Mediterranean climate and fertile soils of Greece provided favorable conditions for growing wheat, barley, olives, and grapes, the staple crops that sustained both local communities and palace economies. Archaeological evidence from rural sites reveals sophisticated agricultural techniques, including terracing, irrigation systems, and crop rotation practices that maximize productivity from available land. The typical Mycenaean farmstead consisted of a modest stone-built house with several rooms, storage facilities, and associated outbuildings for animals and equipment. These structures were far simpler than palace architecture, but displayed competent construction techniques and practical designs suited to local conditions. Many farmsteads included workshops where families produced textiles, pottery, and other goods for both domestic use and exchange with neighboring communities. Rural communities maintained their own local traditions and customs while participating in the broader Mycenaean cultural system. Local shrines and religious practices complemented the grand ceremonies organized by palace authorities, creating a complex religious landscape that operated at multiple social levels. These community-level religious activities often focused on agricultural fertility, seasonal celebrations, and ancestor veneration, themes that resonated with the practical concerns of farming families. The relationship between rural communities and palace centers was complex and varied considerably across different regions and time periods. In some areas, palace control appears to have been relatively direct, with officials closely supervising local activities and extracting substantial tribute payments. In other regions, local communities enjoyed greater autonomy while still acknowledging palace authority and fulfilling basic obligations. Trade and exchange networks connected rural communities with broader Mediterranean commerce, though on a much smaller scale than palace-organized activities. Local markets facilitated the exchange of agricultural products, craft goods, and raw materials between neighboring communities. These regional networks provided opportunities for rural families to acquire goods not produced locally while contributing to the circulation of products throughout Mycenaean territories. The social structure of Mycenaean communities reveals clear, hierarchical distinctions that extended far beyond the simple division between rulers and subjects. Archaeological evidence from burials and settlements indicates multiple levels of social stratification, with various categories of free citizens, dependent workers, and slaves occupying different positions within the social order. Wealthy, non-royal families accumulated substantial resources and enjoyed privileged positions within local communities, serving as intermediaries between palace elites and common farmers. Craft specialists occupied important positions within this social hierarchy, providing essential services that supported both local communities and palace requirements. Skilled metalworkers, potters, weavers, and other artisans often enjoyed higher status and greater prosperity than ordinary farmers, reflecting the value placed on their specialized knowledge and abilities. Some craftsmen worked exclusively for palace workshops, while others served local markets or combined both activities. Women in Mycenaean society participated actively in economic and religious life, though their roles were clearly differentiated from those of men. The Linear B tablets record various categories of female workers, including textile workers, food preparers, and religious personnel. Archaeological evidence suggests that women controlled certain aspects of household production and participated in local trade networks, while also serving important functions in religious ceremonies and festivals. Marriage and family relationships formed the basic units of Mycenaean social organization, with extended kinship networks providing crucial support systems for individuals and communities. Archaeological evidence from burials suggests that family relationships were carefully maintained across generations, with ancestral traditions playing important roles in community identity and social organization. These kinship networks facilitated economic cooperation, mutual support, and the transmission of cultural knowledge from one generation to the next. Children in Mycenaean society began learning adult roles and responsibilities at early ages, with boys and girls receiving different types of training appropriate to their expected social positions. Archaeological evidence suggests that formal education was limited to elite circles, while most children learned through participation in family and community activities. This apprenticeship system ensured the continuation of essential skills and cultural traditions across generations. The material culture of ordinary Mycenaeans reflects both practical needs and cultural values shared throughout the civilization. Pottery styles, decorative motifs, and construction techniques display remarkable consistency across different regions, indicating the existence of shared cultural standards and communication networks. Local variations in these common themes demonstrate the vitality of regional traditions within the broader Mycenaean cultural system. Housing patterns reveal significant differences in wealth and status within Mycenaean communities. While most families lived in modest stone houses with basic amenities, some individuals constructed larger residences with multiple rooms, storage facilities, and decorative elements that mimicked palace architecture on a smaller scale. These status distinctions were further emphasized through burial practices, with wealthy families investing considerable resources in elaborate tombs and grave goods. The economic activities of ordinary Mycenaeans extended far beyond subsistence farming to include various forms of specialized production and exchange. Rural communities produced surplus agricultural products that were traded with urban centers, while also engaging in craft production that supplied both local needs and external markets. This economic diversity provided resilience and flexibility that helped communities adapt to changing conditions and opportunities. Religious life in Mycenaean communities combined formal palace-sponsored ceremonies with local traditions that addressed the specific concerns of rural populations. Community shrines served as focal points for local religious activities, while participation in regional festivals connected local communities with broader cultural networks. These religious practices reinforced social bonds, legitimized authority relationships, and provided frameworks for understanding natural and social phenomena. Seasonal cycles dominated the rhythm of life for most Mycenaeans, with agricultural activities determining the timing of work celebration, and social interaction. Spring planting, summer cultivation, autumn harvest, and winter preparation created annual patterns that structured community life and provided opportunities for various forms of social and religious activity. These seasonal rhythms connected Mycenaean communities with the natural world while reinforcing cultural traditions and social relationships. The archaeological record reveals that ordinary Mycenaeans possessed considerable technical knowledge and practical skills that enabled them to thrive in their Mediterranean environment. Agricultural techniques, construction methods, craft production, and resource management all demonstrate sophisticated understanding of local conditions and effective adaptation to environmental challenges. This practical knowledge formed the foundation upon which palace civilization was built and sustained. At Obscure Histories, we recognize that understanding ordinary people provides crucial insights into how ancient civilizations actually functioned beyond the spectacular achievements visible in palace complexes and elite burials. The daily experiences of farmers, craftsmen, and their families reveal the human foundations that made possible civilization. The diversity, the remarkable achievements of Mycenaean communities across different regions reflects the civilization's ability to adapt to varying environmental and cultural conditions while maintaining overall coherence and identity. Mountain communities developed different strategies and specializations than coastal settlements, while island populations faced unique challenges and exchanged opportunities that shaped their particular contributions to the broader Mycenaean world networks. Connecting these diverse communities facilitated the flow of goods, ideas, and people that maintained Mycenaean cultural unity, while allowing for regional variation and innovation. These networks operated at multiple scales, from local markets serving immediate neighborhoods to long-distance connections that linked distant regions within the Mycenaean sphere of influence. The resilience and adaptability demonstrated by ordinary Mycenaean communities would prove crucial during the turbulent final centuries of the Bronze Age, when external pressures and internal challenges tested the stability of palace-centered political systems. The survival strategies developed by rural communities during prosperous times provided foundations for continuity during periods of disruption and transformation. The integration of local communities into palace-centered political systems represents one of the most significant achievements of Mycenaean civilization, creating organizational structures that could coordinate activities across large territories while maintaining social stability and cultural coherence. This integration required sophisticated administrative capabilities, effective communication networks, and shared cultural values that connected diverse populations under common political authority. The religious and ceremonial dimensions of community life reinforced these political connections while maintaining local autonomy and cultural distinctiveness. Local shrines and festivals provided venues for expressing community identity and addressing local concerns, while participation in palace-sponsored ceremonies connected communities with broader political and religious networks that defined Mycenaean civilization. The technological achievements of ordinary Mycenaeans in agriculture, crafts, and construction demonstrate the high level of practical knowledge and skill that characterized this civilization. These achievements were not merely the products of elite patronage, but reflected the accumulated wisdom and innovation of countless individuals working within their local communities to solve practical problems and improve their living conditions. The social mobility evident in some Mycenaean communities suggests that the hierarchical structure of this civilization was not entirely rigid, allowing for individual advancement through skill, enterprise, or favorable circumstances. Archaeological evidence of wealthy non-elite families indicates that successful farmers, craftsmen, or traders could accumulate resources and status that elevated their positions within local social hierarchies. The archaeological evidence continues to reveal new aspects of ordinary Mycenaean life as excavations expand beyond palace sites to investigate rural settlements, workshop areas, and burial grounds that provide insights into the experiences of common people. These discoveries demonstrate that Mycenaean civilization encompassed far more than the spectacular achievements visible in palace complexes, revealing a rich and diverse society that successfully integrated multiple communities and regions into a coherent cultural and political system. The religious and spiritual dimensions of Mycenaean civilization reveal a complex system of beliefs that combined indigenous traditions with influences absorbed from across the Mediterranean world. Unlike many ancient civilizations that left elaborate theological texts, our understanding of Mycenaean religion comes primarily from archaeological evidence, artistic depictions, and the administrative records preserved in Linear B tablets. These sources reveal a rich spiritual landscape that permeated every aspect of Mycenaean society, from the grandest palace ceremonies to the most intimate household rituals. The pantheon of Mycenaean deities included many figures who would later become familiar in classical Greek religion, though often with different attributes and roles than their later counterparts. The Linear B tablets record offerings to Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Athena, Artemis, and Dionysus, among others, demonstrating clear continuities between Bronze Age and later Greek religious traditions. However, these early deities appear to have possessed characteristics and functions that differed significantly from their classical forms, reflecting the unique cultural context of Mycenaean civilization. The goddess known as Potnia, meaning mistress or lady, held particular prominence in Mycenaean religious practice. She appears in various forms throughout the Linear B records, sometimes associated with specific locations or attributes that suggest multiple manifestations of divine feminine power. This figure may have represented a synthesis of earlier Aegean goddess traditions with new religious concepts introduced of Mycenaean culture during the formation. Her prominence reflects the important role of female deities in Bronze Age Mediterranean religions. Palace religious ceremonies formed spectacular public displays that reinforced royal authority while fulfilling community spiritual needs. These elaborate rituals required extensive preparation and substantial resources, involving processions, sacrificial offerings, feasting, and various forms of entertainment. The scale of these ceremonies, as recorded in the Linear B tablets, indicates their central importance in palace political and social organization. Religious festivals provided opportunities for palace rulers to demonstrate their wealth, piety, and connection to divine authority. The physical infrastructure supporting Mycenaean religious practice was equally impressive. Palace complexes contained elaborate shrine rooms decorated with frescoes depicting religious scenes, equipped with altars, offering tables and storage facilities for ritual equipment. These sacred spaces were carefully designed to create appropriate settings for ceremonies that connected the human and divine realms. The architectural sophistication of these religious facilities reflects the high priority placed on maintaining proper relationships with the gods. Archaeological excavations have revealed numerous cult sites throughout Mycenaean territories, ranging from simple rural shrines to elaborate sanctuary complexes. These facilities served various functions within the broader religious system, providing venues for local worship while maintaining connections with palace-sponsored religious activities. The distribution of these sites indicates that religious practice operated at multiple social levels, creating networks of sacred places that bound communities together through shared spiritual traditions. Sacrificial practices formed central elements of Mycenaean religious ritual, with animal offerings serving as primary means of communicating with divine powers. The Linear B tablets record detailed inventories of animals designated for sacrifice, including cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs offered during various ceremonies. These sacrificial offerings were often accompanied by libations of wine, oil, and other precious liquids, creating elaborate ritual meals shared between humans and gods. The consumption of sacrificial meat provided opportunities for communal feasting that reinforced social bonds while fulfilling religious obligations. Votive offerings represented another important aspect of Mycenaean religious practice, with individuals and communities presenting gifts to deities in hopes of securing divine favor or expressing gratitude for blessings received. Archaeological evidence reveals a wide variety of votive objects, including bronze weapons, jewelry, pottery vessels, and figurines deposited at sacred sites throughout Mycenaean territories. These offerings demonstrate the personal dimensions of religious practice that complemented the grand public ceremonies organized by palace authorities. The integration of religious and political authority in Mycenaean kingdoms reflects broader patterns common throughout the ancient Mediterranean world. Palace rulers served simultaneously as political leaders and high priests, deriving legitimacy from their claimed connections to divine powers. This integration created powerful ideological foundations for royal authority, while ensuring that religious institutions supported, rather than challenged, political structures. The success of this system depended upon the ability of rulers to fulfill their religious obligations while demonstrating their effectiveness as political and military leaders. Mystery religions and esoteric practices appear to have existed alongside more public forms of Mycenaean worship, though evidence for these activities remains fragmentary and difficult to interpret. Certain archaeological finds suggest the existence of specialized religious knowledge and initiation practices that were restricted to particular groups or individuals. These esoteric traditions may have provided additional sources of religious authority and social distinction within Mycenaean communities. The role of religious specialists in Mycenaean society extended far beyond simple ceremonial functions to encompass various forms of sacred knowledge and practical skills. Priests and priestesses served as intermediaries between human communities and divine powers, possessing specialized knowledge of ritual procedures, sacred traditions, and theological concepts. These religious specialists often held important positions within palace administration, reflecting the integration of religious and political authority that characterized Mycenaean civilization. Divination and prophecy formed important elements of Mycenaean religious practice, providing means for understanding divine will and predicting future events. Archaeological evidence suggests various forms of divination were practiced, including the interpretation of animal sacrifices, natural omens, and possibly oracular consultation. These practices provided crucial guidance for political and military decision-making, while reinforcing beliefs about divine involvement in human affairs. The seasonal dimensions of Mycenaean religious practice connected spiritual activities with agricultural cycles and natural rhythms that governed daily life. Religious festivals were often timed to coincide with important agricultural events such as planting, harvest, and seasonal transitions. These connections between religious and natural cycles reinforced the perceived relationships between divine powers and the natural world upon which human survival depended. Mortuary practices reveal important aspects of Mycenaean religious beliefs concerning death, afterlife, and ancestral relationships. The elaborate burial customs evident in archaeological sites demonstrate beliefs about the continued existence of the deceased and the importance of maintaining proper relationships with ancestral spirits. The wealth of grave goods found in elite burials suggests beliefs about the need to provide for the deceased in their continued existence, while also serving to display the status and resources of surviving family members. The artistic expression of religious themes in Mycenaean culture provides valuable insights into spiritual beliefs and practices that are not fully documented in written sources. Frescoes, pottery decorations, seal stones, and other artistic media depict various religious scenes, mythological narratives, and symbolic motifs that illuminate aspects of Mycenaean spiritual life. These artistic traditions drew inspiration from various sources while developing distinctly Mycenaean characteristics that reflected local cultural values and religious concepts. The influence of Minoan religious traditions on Mycenaean spiritual practices is evident in numerous artistic and archaeological contexts. The adoption of certain Minoan religious symbols, ritual practices, and mythological themes demonstrates the synthetic nature of Mycenaean culture, which successfully integrated foreign influences with indigenous traditions. This cultural synthesis created religious systems that were both distinctly Mycenaean and connected to broader Mediterranean spiritual traditions. Regional variations in religious practice throughout Mycenaean territories reflect the diversity of local traditions and cultural influences that shape different communities. While certain common elements united Mycenaean religious practice across different regions, local variations in ritual procedures, deity preferences, and sacred sites demonstrate the flexibility and adaptability of Mycenaean spiritual systems. These regional differences contributed to the overall richness and complexity of Mycenaean religious culture. The economic dimensions of Mycenaean religious practice involved substantial resource investments that supported religious institutions, while creating opportunities for various forms of social and economic activity. Religious festivals required extensive expenditures for sacrificial animals, ritual equipment, entertainment, and hospitality, creating demand for various goods and services. These economic activities connected religious practice with broader economic networks, while providing additional sources of income and employment for various segments of society. At Obscure Histories, we find the religious aspects of Mycenaean civilization particularly fascinating because they reveal the spiritual foundations that supported this remarkable culture. The integration of religious and political authority, the synthesis of diverse cultural influences, and the creation of religious systems that operated effectively at multiple social levels all demonstrate the sophistication and complexity of Mycenaean civilization. The technological aspects of Mycenaean religious practice, including the construction of sacred architecture, the production of ritual equipment, and the organization of complex ceremonies, demonstrate the high level of practical knowledge and organizational capability that characterized this civilization. These technological achievements were not merely functional, but served important symbolic and spiritual purposes that reinforced religious beliefs and practices. The diplomatic dimensions of Mycenaean religious practice extended beyond local communities to encompass relationships with foreign powers and cultural groups. Religious exchanges, including the adoption of foreign deities and ritual practices, served as important elements of diplomatic and cultural interaction. These religious connections facilitated broader patterns of cultural exchange that enriched Mycenaean civilization while maintaining its distinctive characteristics. The preservation of religious traditions through oral transmission and ritual practice ensured the continuity of spiritual knowledge across generations, even when written records were lost or destroyed. This oral tradition provided resilience and adaptability that enabled religious practices to survive political upheavals and cultural transformations. The persistence of certain religious elements into later Greek culture demonstrates the enduring influence of Mycenaean spiritual traditions. The archaeological investigation of Mycenaean religious sites continues to reveal new aspects of spiritual practice and belief that expand our understanding of this civilization. Recent discoveries have illuminated previously unknown ritual practices, sacred sites, and religious artifacts that demonstrate the richness and complexity of Mycenaean spiritual life. These ongoing discoveries ensure that our knowledge of Mycenaean religion continues to evolve and deepen. The military culture of Mycenaean civilization represents one of its most distinctive and influential characteristics, shaping not only the political organization of their kingdoms, but also their artistic expression, social values, and international relations. The Mycenaeans were fundamentally a warrior society where military prowess provided the primary path to political power, social advancement, and economic prosperity. This martial orientation permeated every aspect of their civilization, from the massive fortifications that protected their cities to the heroic ideals that would later inspire Greek epic poetry. The development of Mycenaean military technology demonstrates remarkable innovation and adaptation to changing tactical requirements. Bronze weapons formed the core of Mycenaean military equipment, with palace workshops producing sophisticated swords, spears, daggers, and arrowheads that combined functional effectiveness with artistic excellence. The famous Mycenaean bronze swords, with their distinctive cruciform hilts and carefully balanced blades, represent some of the finest weapons produced in the Bronze Age Mediterranean. These weapons were not merely functional tools, but served as symbols of status and power that reinforced social hierarchies and warrior values. Defensive equipment evolved alongside offensive weapons to create comprehensive military systems adapted to Bronze Age warfare conditions. Mycenaean warriors employed various types of shields, including the distinctive figure-eight shield depicted in palace frescoes and the smaller round shields that became more common in later periods. Body armour, though less well preserved in the archaeological record, appears to have included bronze corselets and helmets that provided protection while allowing sufficient mobility for effective combat. The famous boar's tusk helmets, described in Homer's Iliad and confirmed by archaeological discoveries, represent one of the most distinctive elements of Mycenaean military equipment. These elaborate helmets, constructed from carefully arranged boar tusks attached to leather caps, required substantial resources and skilled craftsmanship to produce. Their appearance in both archaeological contexts and later literary sources demonstrates the continuity of certain military traditions from the Bronze Age through the Classical period. Chariot warfare formed the elite core of Mycenaean military forces, providing mobile platforms for aristocratic warriors who formed the backbone of palace armies. Archaeological evidence reveals sophisticated chariot technology that combined lightweight construction with remarkable durability and maneuverability. Mycenaean chariots featured distinctive design elements, including centrally mounted axles that improved stability and handling characteristics superior to contemporary designs used by other Mediterranean civilizations. The organization and training of chariot forces required substantial resources and specialized knowledge that were concentrated within palace administrations. The Linear B tablets record detailed inventories of chariots, horses, and equipment that reveal the scale and complexity of these military units. Chariot crews consisted of driver-warrior teams, supported by extensive networks of grooms, trainers, veterinarians, and maintenance specialists who ensured the effectiveness of these elite forces. Horse breeding and training represented crucial elements of Mycenaean military capability that required long-term planning and substantial investment. Archaeological evidence suggests that Mycenaean horse breeding programs produced animals specifically adapted to chariot warfare requirements, combining speed, endurance, and tractability in ways that maximized military effectiveness. The care and training of these valuable animals involved sophisticated knowledge of veterinary medicine, nutrition, and behavioral conditioning. Infantry forces formed the numerical majority of Mycenaean armies, providing the mass and staying power necessary for effective military campaigns. These foot soldiers were equipped with bronze weapons and organized under hierarchical command structures that enabled coordinated tactical operations. The Linear B tablets reveal various categories of infantry personnel, from heavily armed spearmen to light troops specialized in skirmishing and reconnaissance functions. The recruitment and organization of military forces reflected the hierarchical nature of Mycenaean society, while providing opportunities for social advancement through military service. Elite warriors derived their status from birth, wealth, and demonstrated combat effectiveness, while common soldiers could improve their positions through distinguished service and successful campaigning. This military hierarchy provided social mobility while reinforcing the warrior values that dominated Mycenaean culture. Naval capabilities represented another crucial dimension of Mycenaean military power, enabling the projection of force across the Aegean world and supporting the extensive trading networks that sustained palace economies. Archaeological evidence and artistic depictions reveals sophisticated shipbuilding technologies that produced vessels capable of carrying substantial numbers of warriors, along with their equipment and supplies. These ships combined sailing and rowing capabilities that provided flexibility and reliability for various types of maritime operations. The logistics of Mycenaean military campaigns required sophisticated organizational capabilities that demonstrate the administrative sophistication of palace governments. The movement, supply, and coordination of large military forces across difficult terrain and long distances demanded careful planning, substantial resources, and effective communication networks. The Linear B tablets provide glimpses of these logistical systems, recording provisions, equipment allocations, and personnel assignments for various military operations. Fortification architecture represents one of the most visible and impressive aspects of Mycenaean military culture, with massive defensive walls surrounding major palace centers and strategic locations throughout their territories. The famous Cyclopean walls of Mycenae, Tiryns, and other sites demonstrate remarkable engineering capabilities that enabled the construction of defensive systems capable of withstanding prolonged sieges. These fortifications required enormous investments of labor and resources that could only be mobilized by powerful centralized authorities. The design and construction of Mycenaean fortifications reveals sophisticated understanding of defensive principles and siege warfare tactics. Features such as overlapping fields of fire, protected sally ports, underground passages, and secure water supplies demonstrate careful planning based on practical military experience. The integration of natural topographical features with artificial defensive works created formidable obstacles that protected palace centers while providing secure bases for military operations. Siege warfare capabilities complemented defensive technologies to create comprehensive military systems adapted to Bronze Age combat conditions. Archaeological evidence suggests that Mycenaean forces possessed the equipment and expertise necessary for conducting siege operations against fortified positions. The capture and destruction of enemy strongholds formed important elements of military strategy that enabled territorial expansion and political control. The international dimensions of Mycenaean military activity extended throughout the Mediterranean world, with archaeological evidence revealing Mycenaean military presence and influence from the Western Mediterranean to the Near East. Mycenaean warriors served as mercenaries in foreign armies, established military colonies in distant regions, and participated in the complex diplomatic and military relationships that characterized late Bronze Age international politics. The relationship between military service and religious obligation formed important elements of Mycenaean warrior culture, with combat effectiveness dependent upon maintaining proper relationships with divine powers. Warriors participated in religious ceremonies before battles, made votive offerings after successful campaigns, and incorporated religious symbols into their military equipment. This integration of military and religious elements created comprehensive ideological systems that supported warrior values and combat effectiveness. Training and education for military service began at early ages within elite families, with young men receiving instruction in weapons handling, tactical principles, and warrior ethics that prepared them for adult military responsibilities. This military education formed crucial elements of aristocratic culture that transmitted warrior values across generations while maintaining the combat effectiveness of elite military units. The artistic expression of military themes in Mycenaean culture reveals the central importance of warfare in their value system and cultural identity. Palace frescoes depicting battle scenes, hunting expeditions, and military ceremonies demonstrate the prestige associated with martial activities. Decorative weapons, armor, and military equipment served as status symbols that reinforced social hierarchies while celebrating warrior achievements. The economic foundations of Mycenaean military power required substantial resources that could only be sustained through successful territorial control, tribute collection, and trading activities. Military campaigns provided opportunities for acquiring wealth through conquest, raiding, and the establishment of tributary relationships. while also requiring substantial investments in equipment, training, and logistics. This relationship between military activity and economic prosperity created positive feedback systems that reinforce the warrior orientation of Mycenaean society. At Obscure Histories, we recognize that understanding Mycenaean military culture provides crucial insights into the values, organization, and capabilities that enabled this civilization to dominate the Aegean world for several centuries. The integration of military, political, and religious authority created powerful systems that could mobilize substantial resources while maintaining social cohesion and cultural identity. The influence of Mycenaean military traditions on later Greek culture is evident in various aspects of classical civilization, from the heroic ideals celebrated in epic poetry to the tactical principles employed by classical armies. The continuity of certain military practices and values demonstrates the enduring impact of Mycenaean warrior culture on subsequent Mediterranean civilizations. The technological innovations developed by Mycenaean military forces influenced weapon design, fortification architecture, and tactical principles throughout the ancient world. The diffusion of Mycenaean military technologies through trade, diplomacy, and conquest contributed to broader patterns of technological development that shaped Bronze Age and Iron Age warfare. The decline and ultimate collapse of Mycenaean military power during the late Bronze Age collapse represents one of the most dramatic transformations in ancient Mediterranean history. The inability of even the most powerful Mycenaean kingdoms to withstand the combination of internal pressures and external threats that characterize this period demonstrates both the achievements and limitations of Bronze Age military systems. The archaeological investigation of Mycenaean military sites continues to reveal new aspects of warrior culture, military technology, and defensive architecture that expands our understanding of this civilization. Recent discoveries have illuminated previously unknown aspects of Mycenaean military organization, while providing new evidence for the sophistication and effectiveness of their military systems. The sophisticated trading networks that connected Mycenaean kingdoms with distant civilizations across the Mediterranean and beyond represent perhaps their most remarkable achievement, rivaling even their military prowess and architectural monuments in scope and complexity. These commercial relationships extended far beyond simple exchange of goods to encompass diplomatic alliances, cultural transmission, and technological innovation that enriched Mycenaean civilization while spreading their influence throughout the ancient world. The geographical extent of Mycenaean commercial activity defies the expectations one might hold for a Bronze Age civilization confined to the Greek mainland and nearby islands. Archaeological discoveries have revealed Mycenaean pottery, weapons, and other artifacts at sites stretching from southern Italy and Sicily in the west to Cyprus and the Levantine coast in the east, from the Danube region in the north to Egypt and North Africa in the south. This remarkable distribution demonstrates trading capabilities that rival those of any ancient Mediterranean power. The organization of long-distance trade required sophisticated institutional frameworks that could coordinate activities across vast distances and diverse cultural environments. Palace administrations served as crucial nodes in these trading networks, providing the capital, personnel, and diplomatic connections necessary for successful commercial ventures. The Linear B tablets reveal administrative systems that tracked trading expeditions, recorded profit and loss accounts, and managed the complex logistics of international commerce. Mycenaean merchants operated under various arrangements that reflected the diverse nature of Bronze Age commercial activity. Some traders worked directly for palace administrations, carrying out official commercial missions that combined diplomatic and economic objectives. Others functioned as independent entrepreneurs who pursued private commercial opportunities while maintaining relationships with palace authorities. Still others appear to have been foreign merchants who established residence within Mycenaean territories while maintaining connections with their homelands. The goods exchanged through these trading networks reveal both the resources available within Mycenaean territories and the exotic materials they sought from distant regions. Mycenaean exports included agricultural products such as olive oil and wine, manufactured goods including pottery and textiles, and raw materials such as silver and lead from their rich mineral deposits. The quality and distinctiveness of Mycenaean pottery made it particularly valued throughout the Mediterranean, with characteristic stirrup jars and other vessel types serving as reliable indicators of Mycenaean commercial presence. The imports that flowed into Mycenaean territories through these trading networks demonstrate their sophisticated understanding of international markets and their ability to acquire materials not available locally. Copper and tin, the essential components of bronze, arrived from various sources including Cyprus, Sardinia, and possibly regions as distant as Britain and Afghanistan. Precious metals including gold came from Egypt and Nubia, while silver arrived from Anatolia and other sources throughout the eastern Mediterranean. Exotic materials that serve primarily decorative or ceremonial purposes reveal the luxury dimensions of Mycenaean international trade. Ivory from African elephants was carved into elaborate decorative objects that adorned palace interiors and served as diplomatic gifts. Amber from the Baltic regions was fashioned into jewelry and ornamental objects that demonstrated connections with northern European trading networks. Lapis lazuli from Afghanistan provided brilliant blue pigments for artistic decoration and religious ceremonies. The technological exchange that accompanied commercial relationships contributed significantly to Mycenaean cultural development and innovation. Metalworking techniques, artistic styles, architectural principles, and manufacturing processes were transmitted through trading contacts that enriched Mycenaean civilization while spreading their own innovations throughout the Mediterranean world. This technological diffusion created interconnected networks of knowledge and skill that accelerated cultural development across multiple civilizations. The diplomatic dimensions of Mycenaean trading relationships extended far beyond commercial considerations to encompass political alliances, military cooperation, and cultural exchange. Trading partnerships often included mutual defense agreements, marriage alliances between ruling families, and various forms of political cooperation that enhanced the security and prosperity of participating kingdoms. These diplomatic relationships created complex webs of obligation and opportunity that influenced political developments throughout the Mediterranean region. Maritime technology formed the foundation upon which Mycenaean trading networks depended, requiring sophisticated shipbuilding capabilities and navigational knowledge that enabled reliable long-distance voyages. Archaeological evidence reveals various types of vessels adapted to different trading requirements, from small coastal craft suitable for regional commerce to larger ships capable of carrying substantial cargoes across open seas. The design and construction of these vessels incorporated innovations that balanced cargo capacity, seaworthiness, and operational flexibility. Navigation techniques employed by Mycenaean sailors combined practical experience with systematic knowledge of winds, currents, seasonal patterns, and celestial observations that enabled accurate course plotting across long distances. The development of reliable navigation capabilities required accumulated knowledge passed down through generations of mariners, creating professional traditions that supported the expansion and maintenance of trading networks. These navigational skills represented crucial technological advantages that enabled Mycenaean merchants to compete effectively with other Mediterranean civilizations. The establishment of trading posts and commercial settlements throughout the Mediterranean provided permanent bases that facilitated ongoing commercial relationships while serving as centers for cultural exchange and technological diffusion. These settlements ranged from small trading stations that served seasonal commercial activities to substantial colonies that developed their own local economies while maintaining connections with Mycenaean homeland territories. The success of these commercial outposts depended upon maintaining good relationships with local populations while preserving Mycenaean cultural identity and commercial interests. The financing and organization of trading expeditions required sophisticated financial institutions that could mobilize capital, manage risks, and distribute profits among various participants. Palace treasuries provided funding for major commercial ventures, while private investors contributed resources in exchange for shares of anticipated profits. These financial arrangements created complex partnerships that distributed both risks and rewards, while enabling larger and more ambitious trading ventures than individual merchants could undertake alone. The seasonal rhythms that governed Mediterranean sailing and agricultural production created annual cycles that structured Mycenaean trading activities. Spring and summer months provided optimal conditions for long-distance voyages, while winter periods were devoted to local commerce, manufacturing activities, and preparation for the following year's trading season. These seasonal patterns required careful planning and coordination that maximized the efficiency of trading operations while minimizing exposure to weather-related risks. The standardization of weights, measures, and quality standards facilitated commerce by creating reliable frameworks for evaluating and exchanging goods across cultural boundaries. Mycenaean merchants developed standardized pottery forms, consistent quality levels for manufactured goods, and reliable measurement systems that enabled efficient commercial transactions with foreign partners. These standardization efforts reduced transaction costs while building reputations for reliability and quality that enhanced Mycenaean commercial competitiveness. The cultural impact of extensive trading relationships extended throughout Mycenaean society, influencing artistic styles, religious practices, technological development, and social values in ways that enriched their civilization while maintaining its distinctive characteristics. Foreign influences were selectively adopted and adapted to local conditions, creating synthetic cultural forms that combined Mycenaean traditions with innovations absorbed through commercial contacts. This cultural synthesis contributed to the dynamism and creativity that characterized Mycenaean civilization at its height. The competitive aspects of Mediterranean trade required Mycenaean merchants to develop distinctive advantages that enabled them to compete successfully with established trading powers such as the Egyptians, Babylonians, and various Anatolian kingdoms. These competitive advantages included superior maritime technology, high-quality manufactured goods, strategic geographical position, and diplomatic relationships that provided preferential access to certain markets and resources. The information networks that supported Mycenaean trading activities required reliable communication systems that could transmit market intelligence, political developments, and other crucial information across vast distances. Merchants, diplomatic envoys, and other travelers served as carriers of information that enabled Mycenaean decision-makers to respond effectively to changing conditions and opportunities throughout their commercial sphere of influence. The legal frameworks that governed international commerce provided essential protections for Mycenaean merchants while establishing procedures for resolving disputes and enforcing agreements. These commercial laws, though incompletely understood from available sources, appear to have included provisions for contract enforcement, dispute resolution, and protection of foreign merchants that facilitated peaceful commercial relationships across cultural boundaries. The integration of trading activities with military and political objectives created comprehensive strategies that advanced Mycenaean interests through multiple means simultaneously. Commercial relationships provided intelligence about foreign territories, created economic dependencies that could be leveraged for political purposes, and generated resources that supported military activities. This integration of commercial, political, and military objectives maximized the effectiveness of Mycenaean international activities. At Obscure Histories, we find the trading accomplishments of the Mycenaeans particularly remarkable because they demonstrate capabilities that would not be equaled in the Greek world until the classical period, many centuries later. The scale, sophistication, and geographical extent of these Bronze Age commercial networks rival those of much later civilizations that are often considered more advanced. The archaeological evidence for Mycenaean trading activities continues to expand, as new discoveries reveal previously unknown aspects of their commercial relationships and capabilities. Recent excavations have uncovered additional trading posts, commercial facilities, and artifact distributions that demonstrate even greater geographical extent and cultural impact than previously recognized. These ongoing discoveries ensure that our understanding of Mycenaean commercial achievements continues to evolve and deepen. The influence of Mycenaean trading practices on subsequent Mediterranean commercial development is evident in various aspects of later Greek and Roman commerce. The geographical knowledge, navigational techniques, trading partnerships, and commercial institutions developed during the Mycenaean period provided foundations upon which later civilizations built their own trading networks. This continuity demonstrates the enduring significance of Mycenaean commercial innovations. The economic foundations created through successful trading activities provided the resources necessary to support the magnificent achievements in architecture, art, military technology, and political organization that characterized Mycenaean civilization. The wealth generated through international commerce enabled palace construction projects, supported specialist craftsmen, funded military campaigns, and maintained the administrative systems that coordinated complex societal activities. The decline of Mycenaean trading networks during the late Bronze Age collapse represents one of the most dramatic economic transformations in ancient Mediterranean history. The disruption of established commercial relationships, the destruction of trading posts, and the collapse of institutional frameworks that had supported international commerce contributed significantly to the broader civilizational crisis that ended the Bronze Age. Understanding these commercial dimensions provides crucial insights into both the achievements and vulnerabilities of Mycenaean civilization. The technological innovations developed to support Mycenaean trading activities influenced various aspects of Mediterranean civilization, from shipbuilding techniques and navigational methods to manufacturing processes and quality control systems. The diffusion of these technologies through commercial contacts contributed to broader patterns of technological development that enhanced the capabilities of multiple civilizations while advancing overall human knowledge and skill. The social dimensions of Mycenaean trading activities created opportunities for cultural exchange, intermarriage, and personal advancement that enriched the lives of individuals while strengthening bonds between different civilizations. Merchants, craftsmen, sailors, and other participants in trading networks developed cosmopolitan perspectives and cross-cultural skills that enhanced their effectiveness while contributing to the overall sophistication of Mycenaean society. The environmental knowledge accumulated through extensive trading activities provided Mycenaean navigators and merchants with detailed understanding of Mediterranean geography, climate patterns, resource distributions, and ecological relationships. This environmental knowledge represented valuable intellectual capital that enhanced the effectiveness of commercial operations while contributing to broader understanding of the natural world. The preservation of commercial records in the Linear B tablets provides unprecedented insights into the practical details of Bronze Age international trade, revealing aspects of commercial organization, accounting procedures, and business relationships that would otherwise remain unknown. These documentary sources complement archaeological evidence to create comprehensive pictures of Mycenaean commercial activities that illuminate both their achievements and their methods. The cultural legacy of Mycenaean trading achievements extends far beyond their immediate historical context to influence subsequent Mediterranean civilizations and contribute to the broader development of international commerce. The precedents established by Mycenaean merchants in areas such as quality standardization, risk management, and cross-cultural cooperation provided models that influenced later commercial development, while demonstrating the possibilities inherent in peaceful international exchange. The artistic and technological synthesis that resulted from extensive trading contacts created distinctive Mycenaean cultural forms that combined local traditions with foreign influences in innovative ways. This cultural creativity stimulated by exposure to diverse civilizations and ideas, contributed to the dynamism and sophistication that made Mycenaean civilization one of the most influential cultures of the Bronze Age Mediterranean world. The strategic implications of Mycenaean commercial dominance extended throughout the ancient Mediterranean, influencing political relationships, military alliances, and cultural developments in ways that shaped the historical trajectory of multiple civilizations. The economic power generated through successful trading activities provided Mycenaean kingdoms with resources and influence that enabled them to play major roles in Bronze Age international politics, while contributing to the overall prosperity and cultural development of the Mediterranean region. The religious practices that bound Mycenaean communities together reveal a spiritual world of remarkable complexity and sophistication that extended far beyond simple ritual observance. The integration of sacred and secular authority created comprehensive ideological frameworks that legitimize political power while addressing the fundamental human need for meaning and connection with divine forces. This religious synthesis drew upon diverse cultural traditions to create distinctly Mycenaean forms of worship that would influence Greek spiritual development for centuries to come. The sacred landscape of Mycenaean territories encompassed numerous types of religious sites that served different functions within the broader spiritual system. Mountain peak sanctuaries provided elevated locations for ceremonies that connected worshippers with celestial deities, while cave shrines offered access to chthonic powers associated with the underworld and agricultural fertility. Sacred groves, springs, and other natural features were incorporated into religious networks that recognized divine presence throughout the natural environment. The ritual calendar that structured Mycenaean religious observance reflects sophisticated understanding of seasonal cycles, agricultural requirements, and social needs that created comprehensive frameworks for community spiritual life. Major festivals coincided with crucial agricultural events such as planting and harvest, while smaller ceremonies marked important transitions in the natural year. These temporal frameworks provided predictable rhythms that organize community activities while reinforcing shared cultural values and religious beliefs. The material culture associated with Mycenaean religious practice demonstrates remarkable artistic sophistication and technical skill that elevated ritual objects beyond mere functional requirements to create sacred art of enduring beauty and spiritual power. Ceremonial vessels, ritual weapons, votive figurines, and other religious objects display craftsmanship that rivals the finest secular artifacts, while incorporating symbolic elements that conveyed complex theological concepts and mythological narratives. The training and education of religious personnel required specialized knowledge that encompassed not only ritual procedures, but also theological concepts, mythological traditions, and practical skills necessary for effective spiritual leadership. Religious specialists underwent extensive preparation that equipped them with the knowledge and authority necessary to serve as intermediaries between human communities and divine powers. This religious education created professional traditions that maintained spiritual knowledge across generations, while adapting to changing cultural conditions. The architectural innovations developed for religious purposes influenced broader Mycenaean building traditions, while creating sacred spaces that enhanced the effectiveness of ritual activities. Temple design, altar construction, and the integration of religious facilities within palace complexes all demonstrate sophisticated understanding of how physical environments could support spiritual activities while reinforcing religious messages and social hierarchies. The international dimensions of Mycenaean religious practice facilitated cultural exchange and diplomatic relationships that enriched their spiritual traditions while spreading their influence throughout the Mediterranean world. Religious festivals provided opportunities for foreign dignitaries to witness Mycenaean ceremonies, while diplomatic marriages and alliances often included religious components that created sacred bonds between different kingdoms and cultures. The preservation of mythological traditions through oral transmission ensured the continuity of religious narratives that provided frameworks for understanding divine relationships, natural phenomena, and human destiny. These mythological traditions, though incompletely preserved in written form, appear to have included complex stories about divine genealogies, heroic adventures, and cosmic struggles that would later influence Greek epic poetry and classical mythology. The integration of religious symbolism into everyday objects and activities created comprehensive sacred environments where spiritual and practical concerns intersected at every level of society. Religious motifs appeared on pottery, jewelry, weapons, and architectural elements, while ritual observances accompanied routine activities such as meals, craftswork, and agricultural labor. This pervasive religious dimension transformed ordinary life into continuous spiritual practice. The healing and medicinal aspects of Mycenaean religious practice combined spiritual and practical approaches to health and wellness that addressed both physical and psychological needs. Religious ceremonies included healing rituals, purification practices, and protective magic that complemented practical medical knowledge to create comprehensive approaches to human well-being. These healing traditions demonstrate sophisticated understanding of the relationships between spiritual, mental, and physical health. The gender dimensions of Mycenaean religious practice reveal complex systems that recognized both masculine and feminine divine principles, while providing important social roles for women within religious institutions. Female religious specialists served crucial functions that complemented male priestly activities, while goddess worship provided powerful feminine role models that influenced social attitudes toward women's capabilities and contributions. The economic impact of religious activities extended throughout Mycenaean society, creating demand for various goods and services, while supporting numerous categories of specialized workers. Religious festivals required extensive provisions, ceremonial equipment, entertainment, and hospitality that generated economic activity while redistributing wealth through community participation in sacred celebrations. The legal frameworks that governed religious practice provided essential protections for sacred sites, religious personnel, and ceremonial activities, while establishing procedures for resolving conflicts between religious and secular authorities. These religious laws, integrated with broader legal systems, created comprehensive frameworks that balance spiritual obligations with practical social needs. The technological innovations developed for religious purposes included sophisticated techniques for producing ceremonial objects, constructing sacred architecture, and organizing complex ceremonies that required coordination of numerous participants and activities. These religious technologies demonstrated practical capabilities that often exceeded purely secular applications while serving important spiritual and social functions. The artistic expression of religious themes created some of the most sophisticated and beautiful works produced by Mycenaean civilization, demonstrating how spiritual inspiration could elevate craftsmanship to exceptional levels of achievement. Religious art served not only decorative purposes, but also conveyed complex theological concepts and mythological narratives that educated viewers while enhancing the spiritual impact of ceremonial activities. The philosophical dimensions of Mycenaean religious thought, though incompletely documented in surviving sources, appear to have addressed fundamental questions about human nature, divine purposes, and cosmic order that would later influence Greek philosophical development. These early theological concepts provided intellectual foundations that supported more sophisticated philosophical inquiries, while maintaining practical relevance for daily life and social organization. At Obscure Histories, we recognize that understanding Mycenaean religious practice provides crucial insights into the values, worldview, and cultural identity that unified this remarkable civilization. The synthesis of diverse spiritual traditions, the integration of religious and political authority, and the creation of comprehensive sacred frameworks all demonstrate the sophistication and creativity that characterize Mycenaean approaches to fundamental human concerns. The archaeological investigation of Mycenaean religious sites continues to reveal new aspects of spiritual practice that expand our understanding of their beliefs and ceremonies. Recent discoveries have illuminated previously unknown ritual activities, sacred sites, and religious artifacts that demonstrate the richness and complexity of Mycenaean spiritual life, while providing new evidence for their cultural achievements and innovations. The influence of Mycenaean religious traditions on later Greek spiritual development is evident in numerous aspects of classical religion, from specific deities and mythological narratives to ritual practices and sacred architectural forms. This continuity demonstrates the enduring impact of Mycenaean spiritual innovations on subsequent Mediterranean civilizations, while highlighting their role as cultural ancestors of classical Greek civilization. The regional variations in religious practice throughout Mycenaean territories reflect the diversity of local traditions and cultural influences that enriched their spiritual systems while maintaining overall coherence and unity. These regional differences contributed to the overall vitality and adaptability of Mycenaean religion, while demonstrating their ability to integrate diverse cultural elements into comprehensive spiritual frameworks. The seasonal and cyclical aspects of Mycenaean religious observance connected spiritual activities with natural rhythms and agricultural requirements that governed daily life throughout their territories. This integration of religious and practical concerns created meaningful frameworks that enhanced both spiritual satisfaction and economic productivity, while reinforcing community bonds and cultural identity. The diplomatic and political functions of religious practice extended throughout Mycenaean international relationships, providing frameworks for alliance formation, conflict resolution, and cultural exchange that enhanced their influence while maintaining peaceful relationships with neighboring civilizations. These religious diplomacy activities demonstrate the sophisticated understanding of how spiritual common ground could support practical political objectives. The educational and cultural transmission functions of religious institutions ensured the preservation of important knowledge and traditions across generations while adapting to changing social conditions and cultural influences. Religious education provided frameworks for transmitting not only spiritual knowledge, but also practical skills, cultural values, and social expectations that maintained community coherence and cultural continuity. The therapeutic and psychological benefits of religious participation provided essential support for individual and community well-being that complemented practical approaches to social organization and conflict resolution. Religious ceremonies offered opportunities for emotional expression, social bonding, and spiritual renewal that enhanced personal satisfaction while strengthening community relationships and cultural identity. The creative and artistic inspiration provided by religious themes stimulated some of the finest achievements in Mycenaean art, architecture, and craftsmanship, while creating cultural forms that express their deepest values and aspirations. This religious creativity contributed significantly to the overall cultural sophistication that distinguished Mycenaean civilization, while providing enduring examples of human artistic achievement. The intellectual and philosophical challenges posed by religious concepts stimulated sophisticated thinking about fundamental questions of existence, morality, and social organization that influenced broader cultural development while providing practical guidance for daily life and social relationships. These intellectual dimensions of religious practice demonstrate the depth and sophistication of Mycenaean cultural achievement. The social integration functions of religious practice created comprehensive frameworks that united diverse communities and social groups under shared spiritual commitments, while providing mechanisms for resolving conflicts and maintaining social harmony. This integrative power of religion contributed significantly to the stability and longevity of Mycenaean political and social systems. The environmental and ecological awareness embedded in Mycenaean religious practice reflects sophisticated understanding of natural relationships and seasonal patterns that enhance their ability to live sustainably within Mediterranean environments while maintaining productive agricultural and pastoral systems. This ecological wisdom expressed through religious symbolism and ritual practice, provided practical guidance that supported long-term environmental stewardship. The legacy of Mycenaean religious innovations extends far beyond their immediate historical context to influence subsequent spiritual development throughout the Mediterranean world and beyond. Their synthetic approach to diverse spiritual traditions, their integration of religious and practical concerns, and their creation of comprehensive sacred frameworks all provided models that influenced later civilizations while demonstrating enduring approaches to fundamental human spiritual needs. The transformation of Mycenaean political organization during the Late Bronze Age reflects broader changes that were reshaping the Mediterranean world as established kingdoms faced unprecedented challenges from multiple sources simultaneously. The palace system that had successfully coordinated complex societies for centuries began showing signs of stress as external pressures combined with internal contradictions to create situations that tested the resilience and adaptability of centralized political structures. The documentary evidence from this transitional period reveals increasing administrative complexity as palace bureaucracies struggled to manage growing challenges while maintaining effective control over their territories. The Linear B tablets from final palace phases show evidence of administrative reorganization, resource conservation measures, and emergency preparations that suggest awareness of mounting difficulties, even as palace officials attempted to maintain normal operations. The military pressures facing late Mycenaean kingdoms originated from multiple sources that created complex strategic challenges requiring sophisticated responses and substantial resource commitments. Raids from northern populations, conflicts with neighboring kingdoms, and the emergence of new military technologies all contributed to changing security environments that strained traditional defensive capabilities while demanding innovative tactical and strategic adaptations. The economic disruptions that characterized this period reflected broader changes in Mediterranean trading patterns as established commercial networks faced disruption from various sources, including piracy, political instability, and changing demand patterns. The palace economies that had depended upon predictable trading relationships found themselves dealing with increased uncertainty and reduced access to essential resources, including metals, luxury goods, and agricultural products. The social tensions that emerged during this period reflect the strains placed upon hierarchical systems by external pressures and internal contradictions that challenged established patterns of authority and resource distribution. Archaeological evidence suggests increasing inequality, social unrest, and challenges to traditional authority structures as communities struggled to adapt to changing conditions while maintaining social cohesion. The environmental factors that contributed to late Mycenaean difficulties included climate changes that affected agricultural productivity and resource availability throughout their territories. Paleoclimatic evidence suggests periods of drought, temperature fluctuations, and changing precipitation patterns that stressed agricultural systems while reducing the surplus production that supported palace economies and complex social organization. The technological changes that characterized this period included the gradual introduction of ironworking, new military technologies, and modified construction techniques that reflected both innovation and adaptation to changing resource availability and strategic requirements. These technological transitions created opportunities for some communities while challenging others that had invested heavily in bronze-based technologies and traditional craft specializations. The demographic pressures that affected late Mycenaean territories included population movements, settlement relocations, and changing patterns of urban and rural organization that reflected responses to various environmental, economic, and political challenges. Archaeological evidence suggests both population decline in some areas and concentration in others as communities adapted to changing conditions through various survival strategies. The administrative responses developed by palace governments reveal attempts to maintain control and effectiveness despite mounting challenges through various innovations, including centralization of authority, resource rationing, defensive preparations, and diplomatic initiatives designed to preserve stability and security. These administrative adaptations demonstrate both the capabilities and limitations of Bronze Age governmental systems when faced with complex crisis situations. The cultural changes that accompanied political and economic disruption include modifications in religious practice, artistic expression, and social customs that reflect community adaptations to changing conditions while attempting to maintain cultural continuity and identity. These cultural adaptations reveal both resilience and flexibility in Mycenaean society as communities developed new approaches to traditional concerns and values. The regional variations in responses to late Bronze Age challenges demonstrate the diversity of conditions and capabilities that characterized different parts of the Mycenaean world as various kingdoms and communities developed different strategies for dealing with common problems. Some regions showed remarkable resilience and continuity, while others experienced dramatic disruption and transformation that fundamentally altered their social and political organization. The international dimensions of late Mycenaean difficulties reflect broader patterns of disruption that affected multiple civilizations throughout the Eastern Mediterranean, as established political and economic systems faced simultaneous challenges that overwhelmed traditional coping mechanisms. The interconnected nature of Bronze Age Mediterranean civilizations meant that problems in one region quickly affected others through disrupted trading relationships and political instability. The archaeological evidence from destruction layers at various Mycenaean sites reveals patterns of violence, abandonment, and reconstruction that provide insights into the specific challenges faced by different communities, while demonstrating both the severity of disruption and the resilience of some populations. These destruction patterns vary significantly across different sites and time periods, suggesting complex rather than uniform processes of decline. The continuity elements that persisted through the transition period demonstrate the resilience of certain aspects of Mycenaean culture, including technological knowledge, craft traditions, religious practices, and social customs that survived political collapse and economic disruption. These continuities provided foundations for later cultural development, while maintaining connections between Bronze Age and subsequent Greek civilizations. The transformation of settlement patterns during this period reflects changing security concerns, resource availability, and social organization as communities abandoned some locations while establishing new ones better adapted to changing conditions. These settlement changes reveal adaptive strategies that enabled population survival and cultural continuity despite the collapse of centralized political systems. The evolution of burial practices during the transition period provides evidence for changing social structures, religious beliefs, and resource availability as communities adapted traditional customs to new circumstances while maintaining cultural identity. These mortuary changes reflect broader social transformations, while demonstrating continuity in fundamental cultural values and practices. The linguistic changes that occurred during this period include modifications in Greek dialects and the eventual disappearance of Linear B writing systems as administrative needs changed and literacy became less widespread. These linguistic developments reflect broader cultural changes while demonstrating both continuity and innovation in communication systems and cultural transmission. The artistic developments of the transition period reveal changing aesthetic preferences, resource constraints, and cultural influences as communities adapted traditional artistic forms to new circumstances while maintaining creative expression. These artistic changes provide insights into cultural continuity and innovation during periods of significant social and political transformation. At Obscure Histories, we find this transition period particularly fascinating because it reveals both the achievements and limitations of Bronze Age political systems, while demonstrating the resilience and adaptability of human communities facing unprecedented challenges. The Mycenaean experience during this period provides valuable insights into how complex societies respond to crisis situations and adapt to fundamental changes in their operating environment. The lessons derived from studying Mycenaean political transformation include insights into the relationships between centralization and flexibility, the importance of diverse resource bases, and the role of cultural continuity in maintaining social cohesion during periods of disruption. These lessons remain relevant for understanding how complex societies can build resilience while maintaining effectiveness and cultural identity. The comparative aspects of Mycenaean decline reveal similarities and differences with other Bronze Age civilizations that face similar challenges during this period, including the Hittites, various Mesopotamian kingdoms, and Egyptian territories. These comparisons provide broader perspectives on the nature of Bronze Age political systems and their responses to systematic challenges. The recovery patterns that emerge from Mycenaean territories during subsequent periods demonstrate the foundations for cultural continuity and renewal that survived political collapse while providing bases for later Greek cultural development. These recovery processes reveal the importance of cultural resilience and adaptive capacity in enabling societies to rebuild and innovate after experiencing significant disruption. The scholarly debates surrounding Mycenaean decline reflect ongoing discussions about the relative importance of various factors, including climate change, invasions, internal conflicts, and systematic collapse in explaining the transformation of Bronze Age Mediterranean civilizations. These debates demonstrate both the complexity of historical causation and the ongoing evolution of our understanding based on new archaeological and scientific evidence. The methodological approaches used to study this transition period include combinations of archaeological excavation, scientific analysis, comparative studies, and theoretical modeling that provide comprehensive perspectives on complex historical processes. These methodological innovations continue to expand our understanding while revealing new aspects of Mycenaean civilization and its transformation. The interdisciplinary cooperation required for understanding this period involves collaboration between archaeologists, historians, climatologists, linguists, and other specialists who contribute different types of evidence and analytical approaches. This collaborative research demonstrates the value of integrated approaches to understanding complex historical phenomena while advancing knowledge through shared expertise and resources. The technological innovations developed during the transition period include new approaches to metallurgy, construction, agriculture, and craft production that reflect adaptations to changing resource availability and social needs. These innovations demonstrate human creativity and adaptability while providing foundations for subsequent technological development and cultural achievement. The social innovations that emerge during this period include new forms of political organization, economic relationships, and community structures that enabled survival and adaptation during challenging circumstances. These social innovations reveal human capacity for institutional creativity while providing models for understanding how societies can transform and adapt while maintaining essential functions and cultural identity. The cultural synthesis that resulted from this transition period combined traditional Mycenaean elements with new influences and innovations to create foundations for subsequent Greek cultural development. This synthetic process demonstrates how cultural continuity and innovation can coexist during periods of significant change while maintaining connections between past achievements and future possibilities. The historical significance of this transition extends far beyond Mycenaean civilization to influence broader patterns of Mediterranean cultural development, including the emergence of classical Greek civilization, the spread of alphabetic writing, and the development of new political and cultural forms. Understanding this transition provides crucial insights into the foundations of Western civilization, while demonstrating the complex processes through which cultural transformation occurs. The archaeological record from the final centuries of Mycenaean civilization reveals a complex pattern of adaptation and decline that defies simple explanations of sudden collapse or gradual decay. Instead, the evidence suggests a prolonged period of transformation during which established political and economic systems struggled to maintain effectiveness while facing unprecedented combinations of challenges that tested every aspect of their organizational capabilities and cultural resilience. The administrative documents from this critical period demonstrate remarkable attempts by palace bureaucracies to maintain control and coordination despite mounting difficulties. Linear B tablets from sites like Pylos reveal emergency measures, including the restriction of access to palace areas, the concentration of valuable resources in secure storage facilities, and the mobilization of military forces for defensive purposes. These administrative responses indicate that palace officials were acutely aware of mounting threats while attempting to preserve the complex systems that had sustained their civilizations for centuries. The fortification modifications undertaken at major Mycenaean centers during this period reflect sophisticated understanding of evolving military threats and changing tactical requirements. Archaeological evidence reveals extensive renovations to defensive walls, the construction of additional protective features, and the implementation of improved water storage systems designed to withstand prolonged siege conditions. These defensive improvements required substantial investments of resources and labor that demonstrate both the perceived severity of external threats and the continued organizational capacity of palace governments. The changes in settlement patterns throughout Mycenaean territories revealed diverse adaptive strategies as communities responded to changing security conditions and resource availability. Some populations concentrated in heavily fortified hilltop locations that provided enhanced defensive capabilities, while others relocated to more remote areas that offered concealment and access to alternative resources. These settlement modifications demonstrate sophisticated strategic thinking, while revealing the flexibility and adaptability that characterized Mycenaean responses to challenging circumstances. The evolution of craft production during this transition period reflects both resource constraints and technological innovation, as artisans adapted traditional techniques to changing conditions while developing new approaches to manufacturing and artistic expression. Archaeological evidence suggests shifts toward more efficient production methods, the increased use of local materials as exotic imports became less available, and the development of new decorative styles that reflected changing cultural influences and aesthetic preferences. The transformation of trading relationships during the final Mycenaean centuries reveals the gradual disruption of established commercial networks as political instability, increased piracy, and changing demand patterns affected traditional exchange systems. However, archaeological evidence also indicates the development of alternative trading arrangements, the establishment of new commercial partnerships, and the adaptation of existing networks to accommodate changing political and economic conditions throughout the Mediterranean region. The religious responses to crisis conditions include intensified ceremonial activities, the construction of new sacred facilities, and the development of ritual practices designed to address community concerns about security, prosperity, and divine protection. Archaeological evidence from religious sites reveals increased votive offerings, expanded ceremonial spaces, and modifications to traditional ritual practices that reflect attempts to maintain divine favor during uncertain times while adapting spiritual activities to changing social and economic conditions. The military innovations developed during this period demonstrate continued technological creativity and tactical adaptation as Mycenaean forces encountered new types of threats and combat situations. Archaeological evidence reveals modifications to traditional weapons and armor, the development of new defensive techniques, and the adaptation of existing military organization to address evolving strategic requirements. These military innovations reflect both the challenges faced by Mycenaean kingdoms and their continued capacity for technological and organizational development. The demographic changes that characterize this transition period include evidence of population movements, settlement abandonments, and community reorganizations that reflect various survival strategies employed by different groups facing similar challenges. Some communities appear to have maintained relatively stable populations through successful adaptation to changing conditions, while others experienced significant demographic disruption that fundamentally altered their social organization and cultural practices. The economic diversification that occurred during this period reveals attempts by various communities to develop alternative sources of prosperity and security as traditional palace-centered systems became less reliable or effective. Archaeological evidence suggests increased emphasis on local resource exploitation, the development of specialized craft production for regional markets, and the creation of new forms of economic organization that operated independently of centralized palace control. The cultural continuity that persisted throughout this transformation demonstrates the resilience of fundamental Mycenaean traditions and values despite significant disruption to political and economic systems. Archaeological evidence reveals the maintenance of traditional burial practices, the continuation of established craft traditions, and the preservation of religious customs that provided stability and identity during periods of uncertainty and change. The regional variations in transformation processes reveal the diverse conditions and responses that characterize different parts of the Mycenaean world, as various kingdoms and communities developed distinct strategies for addressing common challenges. Some regions maintained relatively centralized organization and palace-based governance longer than others, while certain areas experienced earlier transitions to more decentralized forms of social and political organization. The technological legacy of late Mycenaean civilization includes innovations in metallurgy, construction techniques, and craft production that influenced subsequent Mediterranean cultural development. The gradual introduction of ironworking, improvements in architectural design, and advances in various craft specializations all contributed to technological foundations that supported later cultural achievements, while demonstrating continued creativity during challenging circumstances. The linguistic developments of this period include changes in Greek dialects, the eventual abandonment of Linear B administrative writing, and the preservation of oral traditions that maintained cultural memory and identity across the transition from Bronze Age to Iron Age civilizations. These linguistic changes reflect broader cultural transformations, while demonstrating both continuity and adaptation in communication systems and cultural transmission processes. The international relationships maintained by late Mycenaean kingdoms reveal continued diplomatic and commercial contacts despite mounting difficulties, suggesting that some aspects of established Mediterranean networks persisted even as others were disrupted or transformed. Archaeological evidence indicates ongoing exchanges with Egypt, Cyprus, and various Anatolian regions that provided both material resources and cultural influences during this transitional period. The social stratification that characterized late Mycenaean society reveals both continuity with earlier hierarchical systems and adaptations to changing conditions that modified traditional relationships between different social groups. Archaeological evidence suggests that while basic social distinctions persisted, the specific mechanisms through which status was maintained and expressed underwent significant modifications as palace-centered systems became less dominant. The artistic achievements of this transition period demonstrate continued creativity and cultural expression, despite political and economic challenges, revealing the persistence of aesthetic values and technical skills that contributed to cultural continuity. Archaeological discoveries include sophisticated pottery, metalwork, and architectural decoration that maintain traditional quality standards while incorporating new stylistic elements and technical innovations. At Obscure Histories, we recognize that this transition period represents one of the most fascinating and complex transformations in ancient Mediterranean history, revealing both the achievements and limitations of Bronze Age civilizations, while demonstrating the remarkable adaptability of human communities facing unprecedented challenges. The Mycenaean experience during these crucial centuries provides valuable insights into the foreanalyzing destruction layers, dating processes through which complex societies transform elements. The archaeological methodologies employed to and adapt while maintaining essential cultural study. This transition period includes sophisticated techniques, transitional phases, and identifying cultural continuities that provide comprehensive understanding of complex historical processes. These methodological advances continue to reveal new aspects of Mycenaean transformation while refining our understanding of the specific mechanisms and timelines involved in civilizational change. The comparative perspectives provided by studying similar transitions in other Bronze Age civilizations reveal both unique aspects of Mycenaean transformation and common patterns that characterize the broader Late Bronze Age collapse throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. These comparisons enhance understanding of systematic factors that affected multiple civilizations while illuminating specific local conditions and responses. The environmental evidence from this period includes paleoclimatic data that reveals changing weather patterns, agricultural productivity, and resource availability that affected Mycenaean territories during these crucial centuries. Scientific analysis of climate proxies, soil samples, and biological remains provides detailed understanding of environmental conditions that influenced human communities and their adaptive strategies. The theoretical frameworks used to understand this transformation include various models of civilizational change, systems theory approaches, and interdisciplinary perspectives that integrate archaeological, historical, and scientific evidence. These theoretical approaches continue to evolve as new evidence becomes available while providing conceptual tools for understanding complex historical processes and their underlying mechanisms. The cultural memory preserved through oral traditions, artistic motifs, and ritual practices maintained connections between Mycenaean achievements and subsequent Greek cultural development, ensuring that important elements of Bronze Age civilization influenced later Mediterranean societies. This cultural transmission demonstrates the importance of traditional knowledge systems in maintaining civilizational continuity across periods of political and economic disruption. The settlement archaeology of transition period sites reveals detailed evidence for how individual communities adapted to changing conditions through modifications to housing, storage, defense, and economic activities. These community-level studies provide crucial insights into the human experiences of civilizational transformation, while revealing the diversity of adaptive strategies employed by different populations. The technological continuities that persisted through this transition include craft techniques, construction methods, and agricultural practices that maintained practical knowledge and skills despite political disruption. These technological traditions provided foundations for cultural recovery and development, while demonstrating the resilience of practical knowledge systems and their importance for societal continuity. The ritual landscapes that developed during this period reveal changing relationships between communities and their sacred environments, as traditional religious systems adapted to new circumstances while maintaining essential spiritual functions. Archaeological investigation of religious sites provides evidence for both continuity and innovation in spiritual practices that supported community identity and social cohesion during challenging times. The economic networks that emerge from traditional palace systems include evidence for alternative forms of exchange, resource distribution, and craft production that operated independently of centralized control while maintaining essential economic functions. These alternative economic arrangements demonstrate human creativity in developing new organizational forms while preserving essential societal capabilities. The social institutions that evolved during this transformation include modified kinship systems, altered authority structures, and new forms of community organization that maintained social cohesion while adapting to changed political and economic conditions. These institutional adaptations reveal both the flexibility of human social organization and the importance of maintaining essential social functions during periods of significant change. The cultural synthesis that resulted from this lengthy transformation combined traditional Mycenaean elements with new influences and innovations to create distinctive foundations that would later contribute to the emergence of classical Greek civilization. This synthetic process demonstrates how cultural transformation can preserve essential elements while incorporating new features that enhance adaptability and creativity. The historical significance of understanding this transition extends beyond academic interest to provide insights into how complex societies can build resilience, maintain cultural identity, and develop adaptive capacity while facing unprecedented challenges. The Mycenaean experience offers valuable lessons for understanding both the possibilities and limitations of human social organization, while demonstrating the importance of cultural continuity and innovation in enabling societal survival and development. The interdisciplinary research required to understand this complex transformation involves collaboration between archaeologists, historians, climatologists, anthropologists, and other specialists who contribute different perspectives and analytical techniques. This collaborative approach continues to reveal new aspects of Mycenaean civilization while advancing methodological approaches that enhance understanding of complex historical processes and their underlying mechanisms. The ongoing discoveries that continue to illuminate this transition period include new archaeological sites, improved analytical techniques, and expanded data sets that refine understanding while revealing previously unknown aspects of Mycenaean transformation. These continuing research efforts ensure that knowledge of this crucial period continues to evolve while providing increasingly sophisticated understanding of one of history's most significant civilizational transitions. The legacy of Mycenaean civilization extends far beyond their immediate historical context to influence subsequent Mediterranean cultural development through preserved traditions, technological innovations, and cultural achievements that contributed to the foundations of Western civilization. Understanding this legacy provides crucial insights into the long-term significance of Bronze Age achievements, while demonstrating the enduring impact of human creativity and adaptability across historical periods and cultural transformations. The maritime achievements that enabled Mycenaean expansion throughout the Mediterranean represent technological and organizational accomplishments that would not be equaled in the Greek world for many centuries after their disappearance. The sophisticated shipbuilding techniques developed by Mycenaean craftsmen produced vessels capable of carrying substantial cargoes across treacherous waters while maintaining the speed and maneuverability necessary for both commercial and military operations. Archaeological evidence from shipwrecks and artistic depictions reveals hull designs that optimized seaworthiness through careful attention to weight distribution, structural reinforcement, and hydrodynamic principles that demonstrate remarkable understanding of naval architecture. The construction of these vessels required coordinated efforts from multiple craft specialists who possessed detailed knowledge of wood selection, joinery techniques, waterproofing methods, and rigging systems that enabled reliable long-distance navigation. Master shipbuilders supervised workshops that employed carpenters, metalworkers, rope makers, and sail weavers whose combined skills produced seaworthy craft, capable of withstanding the stresses of extended voyages, while carrying valuable cargoes and personnel safely across vast distances. The quality and durability of Mycenaean shipbuilding is attested by the widespread distribution of their pottery and other artifacts throughout the Mediterranean, indicating regular and successful completion of challenging maritime journeys. The navigational knowledge possessed by Mycenaean mariners encompassed sophisticated understanding of seasonal wind patterns, ocean currents, celestial observations, and coastal landmarks that enabled accurate course plotting across open waters. This accumulated wisdom, passed down through generations of experienced sailors, created professional traditions that supported the expansion and maintenance of extensive trading networks, while enabling military expeditions to distant territories. The precision required for successful navigation to specific destinations across hundreds of miles of open ocean demonstrates mathematical and astronomical knowledge that complemented practical seamanship skills. The logistical capabilities necessary for organizing major maritime expeditions reveal administrative sophistication that could coordinate personnel, equipment, provisions, and scheduling across complex operations involving multiple vessels and destinations. Palace bureaucracies maintained detailed records of shipping activities, cargo inventories, crew assignments, and voyage planning that enabled efficient utilization of maritime resources while minimizing risks and maximizing profits from commercial ventures. These organizational systems required sophisticated communication networks, standardized procedures, and experienced administrators capable of managing complex variables and contingencies. The harbor facilities developed throughout Mycenaean territories provided essential infrastructure that supported maritime activities through protected anchorages, cargo handling equipment, storage facilities, and maintenance services necessary for effective port operations. Archaeological investigations have revealed sophisticated harbor engineering that included breakwaters, quays, warehouses, and shipyards capable of accommodating large vessels while facilitating efficient loading and unloading operations. These port facilities required substantial investments and ongoing maintenance that demonstrate the priority placed on maritime activities within Mycenaean economic and political strategies. The cultural impact of extensive maritime contacts extended throughout Mycenaean society, influencing artistic styles, technological development, religious practices, and social customs through exposure to diverse civilizations and ideas encountered during trading voyages. Sailors, merchants, and other maritime personnel served as conduits for cultural exchange that enriched Mycenaean civilization while spreading their influence throughout the Mediterranean world. This cosmopolitan perspective, developed through regular contact with foreign cultures, contributed to the sophistication and adaptability that characterized Mycenaean approaches to various challenges and opportunities. The competitive advantages that enabled Mycenaean merchants to succeed in international markets included superior vessel design, reliable navigation techniques, high-quality manufactured goods, and strategic geographical position that provided access to both Eastern and Western Mediterranean trading networks. These advantages were maintained through continuous innovation, quality control, and investment in maritime infrastructure that supported commercial competitiveness, while establishing reputations for reliability and excellence that facilitated long-term trading relationships. The seasonal rhythms that governed Mediterranean sailing created annual cycles that structured Mycenaean maritime activities around agricultural production schedules and market-optimal weather conditions for long demands throughout, and summer months provided favorable distance voyages their trading territories. Spring-D resource management. The risk efficiency of maritime operations while adapt careful planning and management strategies employed by Mycenaean to natural, while autumn and winter periods that maximize constraints and opportunities, and local the year. These seasonal patterns require trading activities that commercialize the momentum. Throughout diversified cargo, maritime enterprises include maintenance, cargo preparation, were devoted to vessel arrangements that distributed potential losses, while destination planning, weather monitoring, and insurance maximizing opportunities for profitable selection. Multiple ventures. Experienced merchants develop sophisticated understanding of market conditions, political situations, and environmental factors that influence the success of trading expeditions while maintaining flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances and unexpected opportunities. The technological innovations developed specifically for maritime applications included advances in metallurgy for anchor production, improvements in textile manufacturing for sail construction, innovations in food preservation for extended voyages, and developments in cargo handling equipment that enhanced the efficiency and safety of shipping operations. These maritime technologies often found applications in other areas of Mycenaean society, while contributing to their overall technological capabilities and economic competitiveness. The international relationships facilitated by maritime contacts extended beyond simple commercial exchanges to encompass diplomatic alliances, military cooperation, cultural exchanges, and technological transfer that enriched participating civilizations while creating networks of mutual benefit and shared interest. These relationships required sophisticated understanding of foreign customs, languages, and political systems that enabled effective communication and negotiation across cultural boundaries while maintaining Mycenaean interests and values. The economic multiplier effects of successful maritime activities extended throughout Mycenaean society, creating employment opportunities, stimulating craft production, generating tax revenues, and supporting various service industries that contributed to overall prosperity and economic development. The wealth generated through international commerce provided resources for palace construction, military equipment, religious ceremonies, and other activities that enhanced the capabilities and prestige of Mycenaean kingdoms while supporting complex social and political organization. The environmental knowledge accumulated through extensive maritime activities provided detailed understanding of Mediterranean geography, climate patterns, resource distributions, and ecological relationships that enhance the effectiveness of commercial operations while contributing to broader scientific knowledge. This environmental expertise enabled accurate prediction of weather conditions, identification of favorable fishing grounds, location of freshwater sources, and recognition of natural hazards that affected maritime safety and efficiency. The cultural synthesis that resulted from maritime contacts combined Mycenaean traditions with foreign influences to create distinctive artistic styles, technological innovations, and social practices that enriched their civilization while maintaining cultural identity. This cultural creativity, stimulated by exposure to diverse ideas and practices, contributed to the dynamism and sophistication that characterize Mycenaean achievements, while demonstrating the benefits of international exchange and cooperation. At Obscure Histories, we recognize that Mycenaean maritime accomplishments represent one of the most impressive achievements of Bronze Age civilization, demonstrating capabilities that enabled a relatively small population to exert influence across vast distances while maintaining complex political and economic systems. Their maritime success provides valuable insights into the relationships between technological innovation, organizational capability, and cultural adaptability that enable societies to extend their influence beyond natural geographical limitations. The preservation of maritime traditions through oral transmission and practical training ensured the continuity of essential knowledge across generations while adapting to changing conditions and technological developments. Master mariners passed specialized knowledge to apprentices through hands-on training that combined theoretical understanding with practical experience, creating professional traditions that maintained high standards while incorporating innovations and improvements developed through ongoing experience and experimentation. The archaeological investigation of Mycenaean maritime activities continues to reveal new aspects of their seafaring capabilities through underwater archaeology, coastal surveys, and analysis of harbour facilities that expand understanding of their technological achievements and organizational sophistication. These ongoing discoveries demonstrate the extent and complexity of Mycenaean maritime operations while providing detailed evidence for their methods and capabilities. The influence of Mycenaean maritime innovations on subsequent Mediterranean civilizations is evident in various aspects of later shipbuilding, navigation, and commercial organization that built upon foundations established during the Bronze Age. The geographical knowledge, technical skills, and organizational methods developed by Mycenaean mariners provided precedents and models that influenced later civilizations while contributing to the overall development of Mediterranean maritime culture. The strategic implications of Mycenaean maritime dominance extended throughout the ancient Mediterranean, influencing political relationships, economic development, and cultural exchange in ways that shaped the historical trajectory of multiple civilizations. Their control of key shipping routes and commercial networks provided substantial political and economic advantages, while facilitating cultural diffusion that enriched Mediterranean civilization as a whole. The social dimensions of maritime activities created opportunities for individual advancement, cultural exchange, and personal enrichment that enhanced social mobility while contributing to the overall vitality and dynamism of Mycenaean society. Successful merchants, skilled sailors, and experienced navigators could achieve wealth and status that elevated their social positions while contributing to community prosperity and cultural development. The technological legacy of Mycenaean maritime achievements includes innovations in ship design, navigation techniques, and harbour engineering that influenced subsequent Mediterranean civilizations, while contributing to the long-term development of maritime technology. These technological contributions demonstrate the enduring impact of Mycenaean innovations on human maritime capabilities, while highlighting their role as pioneers in Mediterranean seafaring. The economic foundations created through maritime success provided the wealth and resources necessary to support the magnificent achievements in architecture, art, military organization, and political development that characterized Mycenaean civilization at its height. The prosperity generated through successful maritime ventures enabled palace construction projects, supported specialized craftsmen, funded military campaigns, and maintained the administrative systems that coordinated complex societal activities across extensive territories. The cultural memory of Mycenaean maritime achievements persisted through later Greek traditions, mythological narratives, and heroic stories that preserved awareness of Bronze Age seafaring accomplishments while inspiring subsequent generations to pursue maritime activities. These cultural traditions maintained connections between Mycenaean achievements and later Greek maritime development, while demonstrating the enduring significance of their pioneering contributions to Mediterranean civilization. The environmental impact of intensive maritime activities included both positive and negative effects on Mediterranean ecosystems, as increased shipping, harbour construction, and resource exploitation affected coastal environments while facilitating economic development and cultural exchange. Understanding these environmental dimensions provides insights into the relationships between human activities and natural systems, while revealing both the benefits and costs of maritime expansion. The legal frameworks that governed maritime activities included regulations concerning ship construction, crew qualifications, cargo handling, and dispute resolution that provided essential protections for commercial ventures while maintaining safety standards and fair dealing practices. These maritime laws, though incompletely preserved in available sources, appear to have included sophisticated provisions that facilitated peaceful commerce while protecting the interests of various participants in maritime activities. The educational systems that supported maritime activities included specialized training programs, apprenticeship arrangements, and knowledge transmission methods that maintained essential skills while incorporating innovations and improvements developed through practical experience. These educational traditions created professional communities that preserved crucial knowledge while adapting to changing conditions and technological developments. The artistic expression of maritime themes in Mycenaean culture demonstrates the cultural importance and prestige associated with seafaring activities, while providing valuable evidence for their methods and achievements. Palace frescoes, pottery decorations, and other artistic media depict various aspects of maritime life that illuminate both practical details and cultural values associated with seafaring, while celebrating the achievements of successful mariners and merchants. The religious dimensions of maritime activities included ceremonies for vessel blessing, prayers for safe voyages, offerings for favourable weather, and rituals of thanksgiving for successful returns that integrated spiritual and practical concerns while providing psychological support for dangerous undertakings. These religious practices reflect the recognition of natural forces and divine powers that influenced maritime success, while providing frameworks for understanding and coping with the uncertainties inherent in seafaring activities. The diplomatic functions of maritime activities extended beyond commercial considerations to encompass political relationships, military cooperation, and cultural exchange, that enhanced Mycenaean influence while maintaining peaceful relationships with foreign powers. Maritime expeditions often included diplomatic missions that negotiated treaties, arranged alliances, and facilitated various forms of international cooperation that supported both commercial and political objectives. The technological diffusion facilitated by maritime contacts contributed to the spread of innovations throughout the Mediterranean world, as Mycenaean merchants and mariners carried new ideas, techniques, and products to distant regions while bringing foreign innovations back to their homeland territories. This technological exchange enriched multiple civilizations while accelerating overall human progress and development through the sharing of knowledge and expertise across cultural boundaries. The seasonal variations in maritime activities created complex scheduling requirements that coordinated shipping operations with agricultural production, manufacturing cycles, and market demands throughout the Mediterranean trading network. These temporal frameworks required sophisticated planning and communication that maximized the efficiency of commercial operations while adapting to natural constraints and cultural requirements in different regions and markets. The competitive strategies employed by Mycenaean maritime enterprises included product specialization, market segmentation, route optimization, and relationship building that enabled successful competition with established trading powers while developing new markets and commercial opportunities. These competitive approaches required detailed market knowledge, strategic thinking, and adaptive capability that enabled sustained success in dynamic and challenging commercial environments. Resilience demonstrated by Mycenaean maritime communities during the turbulent final centuries of the Bronze Age reveals adaptive strategies that enabled continued commercial and cultural activities despite mounting political and economic pressures. Coastal settlements developed alternative trading arrangements that operated independently of traditional palace-controlled networks, while maintaining essential commercial functions and cultural connections. These decentralized maritime activities provided crucial continuity that preserved important technological knowledge and commercial relationships across the transition from Bronze Age to Iron Age civilizations. The modification of traditional shipping routes during this period reflects sophisticated understanding of changing political conditions and security threats that affected Mediterranean commerce. Experienced mariners developed alternative passages that avoided areas of particular danger while maintaining access to essential markets and resources. These route modifications required detailed geographical knowledge and flexible operational planning that enabled continued maritime activities despite widespread disruption to established commercial networks and political relationships throughout the region. The technological adaptations implemented by late Mycenaean shipbuilders demonstrate continued innovation and problem-solving capabilities despite resource constraints and changing operational requirements. Archaeological evidence reveals modifications to traditional vessel designs that improved defensive capabilities, enhanced cargo efficiency, and adapted to alternative materials as exotic imports became less readily available. These technological developments reflect both practical necessity and continued creative capacity that enabled maritime activities to persist through challenging circumstances. The preservation of navigational knowledge through oral transmission and practical training ensured the continuity of essential maritime skills across generations of mariners who maintained crucial capabilities despite the collapse of formal educational institutions and administrative systems. Master navigators passed specialized knowledge to apprentices through traditional methods that preserved crucial technical information while adapting to changing operational conditions and cultural circumstances. The archaeological evidence from late Mycenaean coastal sites reveals diverse adaptive strategies as maritime communities responded to changing conditions through various survival mechanisms, including settlement relocation, economic diversification, and social reorganization. Some coastal populations concentrated in defensible locations that provided enhanced security while maintaining access to maritime resources, while others developed more dispersed settlement patterns that reduced vulnerability to concentrated attacks while preserving essential maritime capabilities. The international relationships maintained by Mycenaean maritime communities during this transition period demonstrate remarkable persistence and adaptability as established commercial networks evolved to accommodate changing political conditions throughout the Mediterranean world. Archaeological evidence indicates continued exchanges with Cyprus, Egypt, and various other regions that provided both material resources and cultural influences despite widespread disruption to traditional political and economic systems. The economic diversification that characterized late Mycenaean maritime communities included development of alternative commercial specializations, regional trading networks, and modified production systems that maintained essential economic functions while adapting to changed resource availability and market conditions. These economic adaptations reveal sophisticated understanding of commercial principles and remarkable flexibility in developing new approaches to familiar challenges and opportunities. The cultural synthesis that resulted from continued maritime contacts during this period combined traditional Mycenaean elements with new influences encountered through ongoing commercial and cultural exchanges. This synthetic process created distinctive cultural forms that maintained essential Mycenaean characteristics while incorporating innovations and adaptations that enhanced survival capabilities and cultural richness during challenging circumstances. The technological legacy that emerged from late Mycenaean maritime activities includes innovations in shipbuilding, navigation, and commercial organization that influenced subsequent Mediterranean civilizations, while preserving crucial knowledge and capabilities across the transition from Bronze Age to Iron Age cultures. These technological continuities provided foundations for later maritime development, while demonstrating the enduring value of Mycenaean innovations and achievements. The seasonal adaptations that governed late Mycenaean maritime activities reveal sophisticated understanding of natural cycles and environmental conditions that enabled continued commercial operations despite political disruption and resource constraints. Maritime communities maintained awareness of optimal sailing seasons, weather patterns, and resource availability that enabled efficient utilization of limited opportunities while minimizing exposure to various risks and dangers. The social institutions that supported late Mycenaean maritime activities included modified kinship networks, alternative authority structures, and new forms of community organization that maintained essential social functions while adapting to changed political and economic conditions. These institutional adaptations demonstrate remarkable social flexibility and creativity in developing organizational forms that preserved crucial capabilities while accommodating new circumstances and requirements. The religious practices that accompanied late Mycenaean maritime activities reveal continued spiritual traditions that provided psychological support and cultural identity during uncertain times while adapting traditional ceremonies to new circumstances and requirements. These religious continuities maintained important cultural connections while providing frameworks for understanding and coping with the challenges and uncertainties that characterize this transitional period. The environmental knowledge preserved through maritime traditions included detailed understanding of Mediterranean geography, climate patterns, and resource distributions that remained valuable despite political changes and economic disruption. This accumulated wisdom provided practical guidance that enabled continued maritime activities while contributing to broader cultural knowledge that supported community survival and adaptation during challenging circumstances. At Obscure Histories, we recognize that the maritime dimensions of late Mycenaean civilization reveal both the achievements and limitations of Bronze Age seafaring, while demonstrating the remarkable persistence of essential capabilities despite widespread political and economic transformation. The continued maritime activities during this crucial period provided vital connections that maintained cultural continuity while enabling adaptation and innovation that supported survival and development. The archaeological investigation of late Mycenaean maritime sites continues to reveal new evidence for the persistence and adaptation of seafaring activities during the Bronze Age collapse. providing detailed insights into the mechanisms and strategies that enabled cultural and technological continuity across this significant historical transition. These ongoing discoveries expand understanding of both Mycenaean achievements and their enduring influence on subsequent Mediterranean civilizations. The comparative analysis of maritime responses to Bronze Age collapse reveals both unique aspects of Mycenaean adaptation and common patterns that characterize seafaring communities throughout the Eastern Mediterranean during this period of widespread transformation. These comparisons enhance understanding of the factors that enabled some maritime traditions to persist, while others disappeared, providing valuable insights into the conditions that support cultural and technological continuity during periods of significant disruption. The settlement archaeology of late Mycenaean coastal sites provides detailed evidence for the diverse strategies employed by maritime communities as they adapted to changing security conditions, resource availability, and political circumstances while maintaining essential seafaring capabilities. These community-level studies reveal the human dimensions of civilizational transformation while demonstrating the importance of local adaptation and innovation in preserving crucial cultural and technological traditions. The technological analysis of late Mycenaean maritime artifacts reveals both continuity with earlier traditions and innovations developed in response to changing conditions and requirements. These technological studies provide insights into the adaptive capabilities of Mycenaean craftsmen and mariners, while demonstrating the persistence of essential knowledge and skills that supported continued maritime activities, despite widespread disruption to traditional political and economic systems. The cultural memory preserved through maritime traditions maintained connections between Mycenaean achievements and subsequent Greek naval development, ensuring that important elements of Bronze Age seafaring knowledge influenced later Mediterranean civilizations. This cultural transmission demonstrates the importance of practical knowledge systems in maintaining technological and cultural continuity across periods of political and social transformation, while providing foundations for later innovation and development. The economic networks that emerged from traditional maritime systems include evidence for alternative forms of commerce, resource distribution, and technological exchange that operated independently of centralized palace control while maintaining essential commercial functions. These alternative economic arrangements demonstrate human creativity in developing new organizational forms while preserving crucial capabilities that supported community survival and cultural continuity during challenging circumstances. The diplomatic functions that persisted through maritime contacts provided essential channels for communication, negotiation, and cooperation that maintained peaceful relationships despite political disruption and territorial changes throughout the Mediterranean region. These diplomatic continuities reveal the importance of personal relationships, cultural understanding, and mutual benefit in sustaining international cooperation during periods of political instability and social transformation. The artistic expression of maritime themes during this transition period reveals changing aesthetic preferences and cultural influences while maintaining connections with traditional Mycenaean values and achievements. These artistic developments provide insights into cultural continuity and innovation during periods of significant social and political change, while demonstrating the persistence of creative expression and cultural identity despite challenging circumstances. The environmental adaptation strategies employed by late Mycenaean maritime communities demonstrate sophisticated understanding of natural systems and ecological relationships that enabled sustainable utilization of coastal and marine resources despite political disruption and economic constraints. These environmental strategies provided foundations for long-term survival, while maintaining essential maritime capabilities that supported community prosperity and cultural development. The professional traditions that supported late Mycenaean maritime activities included modified training systems, alternative knowledge transmission methods, and new forms of professional organization that preserved essential skills while adapting to changed social and economic conditions. These professional adaptations demonstrate the resilience of specialized knowledge systems, while revealing the importance of practical expertise in maintaining crucial capabilities during periods of institutional disruption and social transformation. The technological diffusion that continued through late Mycenaean maritime contacts facilitated ongoing exchange of innovations, techniques, and products throughout the Mediterranean world. Despite widespread political disruption and economic uncertainty, this technological exchange maintained crucial connections between different civilizations while contributing to overall human progress and development through continued sharing of knowledge and expertise across cultural and political boundaries. The seasonal rhythms that structured late Mycenaean maritime activities reveal continued awareness of natural cycles and environmental conditions that enabled efficient utilization of limited opportunities while maintaining essential commercial and cultural connections. These temporal frameworks provided stability and predictability that supported planning and coordination despite political uncertainty and social disruption throughout the Mediterranean region. The risk management strategies employed by late Mycenaean maritime enterprises demonstrate sophisticated understanding of commercial principles and environmental factors that enabled continued operations despite increased dangers and uncertainties. These risk management approaches included diversified activities, flexible scheduling, enhanced security measures, and alternative arrangements that reduced vulnerability while maintaining essential maritime capabilities and commercial functions. The social mobility that persisted through maritime activities provided continued opportunities for individual advancement and community development, despite widespread disruption to traditional social and political systems. Successful mariners, skilled navigators, and experienced merchants could achieve improved status and resources that contributed to personal prosperity while supporting community resilience and cultural continuity during challenging circumstances. The cultural synthesis that resulted from continued maritime exchanges during this transition period created distinctive traditions that combined Mycenaean elements with foreign influences to produce innovative cultural forms that maintained essential identity while adapting to new circumstances and opportunities. This synthetic process demonstrates the creative potential inherent in cultural contact and exchange, while revealing the importance of maintaining core values and traditions during periods of significant change. The legacy of late Mycenaean maritime achievements extends beyond their immediate historical context to influence subsequent Mediterranean naval development through preserved knowledge, technological innovations, and cultural traditions that contributed to the foundations of later civilizations. Understanding this maritime legacy provides crucial insights into the long-term significance of Bronze Age achievements, while demonstrating the enduring impact of human adaptability and innovation across historical periods and cultural transformations. The methodological approaches required for studying late Mycenaean maritime activities include sophisticated analytical techniques that combine archaeological evidence, scientific analysis, comparative studies, and theoretical modeling to create comprehensive understanding of complex historical processes and their underlying mechanisms. These methodological innovations continue to reveal new aspects of Mycenaean maritime achievements while advancing approaches that enhance understanding of cultural continuity and transformation during critical historical periods. The interdisciplinary collaboration necessary for understanding late Mycenaean maritime activities involves cooperation between archaeologists, historians, oceanographers, climatologists, and other specialists who contribute different types of evidence and analytical perspectives. This collaborative research demonstrates the value of integrated approaches to understanding complex historical phenomena, while advancing knowledge through shared expertise and complementary methodologies that illuminate different aspects of maritime culture and technological achievement. The ongoing discoveries that continue to illuminate late Mycenaean maritime activities include new archaeological sites, improved analytical techniques, and expanded data sets that refine understanding while revealing previously unknown aspects of seafaring capabilities and cultural achievements. These continuing research efforts ensure that knowledge of Mycenaean maritime accomplishments continues to evolve while providing increasingly sophisticated understanding of one of the Bronze Age Mediterranean's most impressive technological and cultural achievements. The historical significance of understanding late Mycenaean maritime activities extends beyond academic interest to provide insights into how maritime communities can maintain essential capabilities and cultural identity while facing unprecedented challenges and transformations. The Mycenaean maritime experience offers valuable lessons about the relationships between technological innovation, cultural adaptation, and environmental awareness that enable societies to preserve crucial capabilities while developing resilience and flexibility necessary for long-term survival and prosperity. The Bronze Age collapse that ultimately ended Mycenaean palace civilization represents one of history's most dramatic examples of systematic transformation. Yet the maritime traditions that survived this collapse demonstrate the remarkable persistence of human knowledge and cultural achievement even during periods of widespread disruption. The continuation of essential seafaring capabilities across this transition provided crucial foundations for subsequent Mediterranean cultural development, while preserving important technological and cultural achievements that would otherwise have been lost to history. The cultural memory that survived the collapse of Mycenaean palace civilization reveals remarkable resilience in preserving essential knowledge and traditions despite the disappearance of formal institutions and administrative systems. Oral traditions maintained crucial information about genealogies, territorial boundaries, religious practices, and technological procedures that would later influence the emergence of classical Greek civilization. These preserved memories created bridges between the Bronze Age achievements and subsequent cultural developments, ensuring that important elements of Mycenaean civilization continued to shape Mediterranean societies long after their political structures had vanished. The settlement patterns that emerged during the post-palatial period demonstrate sophisticated adaptive strategies, as surviving populations reorganized themselves into smaller, more flexible communities that could respond effectively to changing conditions. Archaeological evidence reveals the establishment of defensible hilltop villages, the development of regional networks based on kinship and traditional relationships, and the creation of new forms of social organization that preserved essential cultural functions while adapting to dramatically altered political and economic circumstances. The technological continuity that persisted through this transformation includes the preservation of crucial craft knowledge, agricultural techniques, and construction methods that maintained practical capabilities despite the collapse of centralized production systems. Master craftsmen continued to pass specialized knowledge to apprentices through traditional training methods, ensuring that essential skills survived even when the palace workshops that had previously organized and supported them disappeared. This technological persistence provided foundations for later cultural recovery, while demonstrating the resilience of practical knowledge systems. The religious practices that survived the collapse maintained spiritual traditions and community identity through modified ceremonies, alternative sacred sites, and adapted ritual procedures that preserved essential religious functions while accommodating changed social and economic conditions. Local shrines replaced grand palace temples as centers of religious activity, while community-based festivals substituted for elaborate palace ceremonies, in maintaining seasonal observances and spiritual connections that bound surviving populations together through shared cultural traditions. The linguistic developments that characterize this transition period reveal both continuity and change in communication systems, as Greek dialects evolved while maintaining essential vocabulary and grammatical structures that preserved cultural identity. The disappearance of Linear B administrative writing did not eliminate literacy entirely, as oral traditions maintained complex narrative and technical knowledge that would later be recorded using alphabetic scripts introduced through contact with Phoenician merchants and settlers. The economic systems that developed during this period demonstrate remarkable creativity in establishing alternative forms of production, exchange, and resource management that operated independently of palace administration while maintaining essential economic functions. Local markets, regional trading networks, and specialized craft production all emerged as communities developed new approaches to familiar economic needs while adapting to changed resource availability and political conditions. The Mycenaeans stand as one of the most remarkable and influential civilizations of the ancient world, bridging the gap between the mysterious Bronze Age and the mysterious Iron Age, and the classical Greek culture that would later define Western civilization. From their enigmatic origins through their spectacular achievements in warfare, commerce, architecture, and administration, to their eventual transformation during the Late Bronze Age collapse, the Mycenaeans demonstrated extraordinary adaptability and innovation that enabled them to dominate the Mediterranean world for over 5 centuries. Their legacy extends far beyond their immediate historical context, influencing everything from Homeric epic poetry to the fundamental structures of later Greek political organization, religious practice, and cultural identity. At Obscure Histories, we hope this exploration has illuminated not merely who the Mycenaeans were, but why their remarkable story continues to captivate scholars and enthusiasts alike, revealing the complex processes through which civilizations rise, flourish, and ultimately transform while leaving indelible marks upon the course of human history.